And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another night of simply the best racing there ever is and ever will be. The F2 Creator Series is here, very much so, and, well, it's the series that breeds chaos upon chaos, and last week epitomised that quite well. Tonight, though, no curveballs, no things going in between the cracks. Tonight it is pure, hard racing from start to finish. And joining me in the commentary box for all of the chaos and catastrophe and conundrums besides, in Portimao tonight, it's Joseph Simmons. Joseph, welcome along. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm very excited to get going and excited to see how these drivers traverse that track, because it's well known for being maybe not the easiest.
No, absolutely. Portimao, a circuit brimming with character. We've seen it on the Formula 1 grid a couple of times back in 2020 and 2021. Both those times won by one Sir Lewis Hamilton. But tonight, the F2 cars have come out to play. Like you say, it's got all of that character. And while I'm here, can I just say, because I know you're on Brazil, well done for getting through that and keeping your head in gear, because I was watching it and I was cross-eyed the whole way through. I couldn't understand particularly the middle of the race. So just how crazy was it from your perspective that last week?
It was absolutely mad. It was just all the drivers were doing just completely different things, and it was difficult to keep up with at times. But I think that added to the excitement, especially as well. There seemed to be so many different tales going on at various times. On one end, you had one driver dominating the race. On the other end, you got 50 seconds worth of penalties, I think it was in the end, for a single driver that we got before he gave up. And I think I don't know if he retired or was disqualified. The same difference, really. But it was certainly a lot of madness.
All achieving their own records in very unique and broadened ways. Today, though, in Portimao, if you want to go and watch Brazil, by the way, Creator Series socials, if you have an internet, go to YouTube and Twitch. All of the action is there from last week. This week, though, a lot of drivers are not here in the regular lineup. For instance, F1 Scott, Gwat, Adam Sanderson, a smattering of drivers not available for this week. However, we do have, therefore, a plethora of other drivers who are ready to fill the gauntlet of Formula 2. For instance, we've got Nogueira, who, unbeknownst to him, came along to his home track today here in Portugal. We've also got GB, he's also here for the ride. Dragonflies, for the first time this season, joins the Formula 2 craze. And that guy Vince is here as well. That's only a few of the names we have joining along today. But we also have to talk about championship things as well. We're at the fulcrum point of the season. Mainly, well, from what I can see, Formula Karim and Cryzix are the ones stealing a march on everyone else.
Yeah, it feels like Formula Karim is really, he's up there every single race, regardless of the conditions, regardless of what we throw at him. He just seems to be able to ride along with it as if it was absolutely nothing. And he had exactly the same thing last week, where maybe he didn't quite have the pace in the sprint, but he was able to fly away in the race, and that's one of the things that has defined his season so far. It's also one of the reasons why he's top of the championship by quite a margin, as you can see up there. 156 points is what is the points tally that he holds currently. He is 28 points ahead of Cryzix, and then, well, he's 61 points ahead of F1 Scott, so those two have built up a massive buffer.
They have, absolutely. But in F2, you can never put a price on anything. It all can change in the blink of an eye. That's what we love about this series as well. You just never quite know what's around the corner for some people. It's also tactical nuance that I've enjoyed about Formula Karim so far this season. When he was on the wet tyres, particularly at the end of last race, using that wider line and giving himself that DRS, that opportunity to keep himself in the podium positions.
Yeah, it was... Well, you have to get creative when you've got a few strategies that and a few ways that we're throwing you off, and that he was certainly able to get creative and just use the track to his advantage.
Absolutely. Also, by the way, let's not go over what Cryzix did, because Cryzix did an absolute masterclass in the feature race in Brazil. Absolutely dominant display from him. Got the strategy bang on. And pace was phenomenal all the way through.
Yeah, it was. I think he was one of the only drivers to really nail that strategy, because it was it was incredibly difficult. Obviously, that's not something you'll practice regularly, especially not if you're being warned about it just before the race. So he did a very good job to come home completely just dominant, not looking as if the strategy had affected him at all, which of course it did. But yeah, he just didn't let it fluster him.
It was an absolutely wonderful time. We could talk about Brazil for years and years, but we're getting prepared for the sprint race here in Portugal. Of course, a reverse grid showing here in the sprint race. Formula Kai's back. It's been a while since we've seen him. Only participated in 2 weeks of Formula 2 racing so far. He is here for Portimao. We got Ultra Killer P2, Pondon in P3, Blackmere 4th, T-Mac is 5th. Of course, sprint race winner last time out in Brazil. Hoodie Pete in 6th, Ricky 7th, Luke Howick 8th, Testwell in 9th, and F1 Alex almost slap bang in the middle in P10. Other than that, it's a very, very interesting lineup. We're going to see quite a few drivers, of course, as we always do in these sprint races, just trying to work their way up to the front, but you can't afford to have any desperation.
No, we found that out last week. Formula Kareem, for example, he tried to fight his way up the field too quickly, and it cost him because it actually ended up sending him backwards, and he ended up out of the points in that sprint race. So it didn't pay off for him, and especially as they won't have had much practice around Portimao, this is the opportunity for them to just go. It's the opportunity for them to, 1, get used to the track, and 2, just build into the weekend, because the feature race is really the main event.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. We've got a bunch of drivers who have disqualified themselves from the formation lap. It's probably not the ideal way to start your weekend, but anywho, we've got Infratic in the Prema this week. We've got Dragonflies in the ART. Formula Karim is just going from team to team and basically showing off his skill set. It doesn't matter what outfit he's in. He says, look at me, I'm here to stay, I can do it. This week, he's going to the Campos outfit for an audition. But there you go. That's unbelievable, isn't it? But back up the front, they're just coming around the final corners. Formula Kai, can't even see him in shot currently. He's absolutely rocketed away towards the grid. Ultra Killer and the rest of them relatively bunched up somewhat, but there's Formula Kai going for a trip towards Spain as opposed to the apex of the final corner as T-Mac gets disqualified. This sprint race is going to be something. I can feel something in the air. It never disappoints, does Formula 2. But today, with them driving normally, no wild card in sight, could be a bit of a firecracker.
Absolutely. And as the last cars are rolling up to the grid, are we going to see a 360? It looks like we might do. Who's this? This is that Pondon going? He was close to go. It was Ultra Killer going for that 360. But yeah, that concludes the formation lap. And you know what happens after formation lap? We go to the 5 red lights.
Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen, for a scintillating sprint. It's 5 red lights. Lights out and away we go. And hopefully they can all get away with some relative speed. It looks like Ultra Killer has got a very good start, pulling alongside Formula Kai to turn 1. Ponder getting his nose in as they head into towards the first corner. Formula Kai uses the momentum round the outside to keep the lead at this early stage. Now they just have to navigate all of these first few corners without making a complete clot of it, as through the left-hander they go. So tricky with the undulations. We've got T-Mac on the outside of Hoodie Pete, in towards the hairpin. How brave are you feeling on the brakes, sir? Time to find out, as Ultra Killer's gone wide. Must have broken extremely late, but gets a great exit, holding the inside to the left-hander against Formula Kai. Now we'll turn to the outside line, though, and Formula Kai is just going to usher him a little bit wide and just keep that position, but it's switched back central. Ultra Killer at this early stage, Joseph, on the rampage.
Yeah, and Formula Kai is doing an incredible job to hold him off. He's putting his car in all the right places. Ultra Killer is also putting his car in all the right places, but the track position is king, especially here in Portimao, where it's difficult to overtake. The undulation makes it so incredibly difficult to overtake, and Ultra Killer is finding that out on lap 1 of this Grand Prix as he's going to come out of the final corner. This is the main overtaking spot if you can get that momentum, and it looks as though Formula Kai has been able to hold on to that position. Looking here, though, as Testwell gets past Hoodie Pete. Hoodie Pete having an awful last corner, getting it all mixed up. He could get behind Kryzix as well, as he's actually gained 4 positions at the start. Testwell's gained 3. Alex has gained 5. Ultra Killer is looking to gain 1, but it's the most important one as he takes the outside line on Kai. as they head through the first sector. Now Kai braking late, locking up, almost running Ultra Killer off the circuit. Ultra Killer actually runs himself off the circuit trying to fight with him, but there's contact between the two, and Kai's at a half spin. He's falling down the order, 5th, maybe even 6th, as he goes behind. The 3-wide moment between these 3 drivers, and F1 Alex comes out on top in that one, but a moment to forget for Formula Kai.
What a gargantuan scrap between the front two. I'm on the edge of my seat already. F1 Alex, by the way, we're highlighting him here. Up 6 positions already. And Ney made that 7 as Blackmere makes a mistake. Goes wide. Down the inside goes Test Will. In the stake medium rare kick Sauber F1 car. Now turns to the outside line. Can he hold it round there? And the answer is absolutely he can. The Portimao track playing to the strengths of the outside line. Such is the undulation. Such is the way that the momentum shifts from one corner to the next. Blackmere losing more positions by the moment. Formula Kai goes through. Now Kryzix up into P6. F1 Alex, though, with the start of a lifetime, up into P2.
It was an incredible start. We'll have to see whether he can maintain that, because Ultra Killer has built up a gap using the fastest, or it was the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, as it's tumbling down now. Alex, Formula Kareem, both taking it, as Alex is just outside of the DRS range. 1.1 seconds as there's a move made for P10. That's Formula Kareem getting past Infratic there, fighting away for this position. Fights ahead as well, as there's contact possibly between Formula Kareem and Ricky just ahead. Formula Kareem still just trying to hold on to it, but Ultra Killer picks up a 3-second time penalty. Looking at the action on track, though, we'll talk about that in a moment. Formula Kareem tucks back in. Hoodie Pete and Ricky still side by side. Formula Kareem does get involved in that battle in the end, and Hoodie Pete loses out, but Ultra Killer, he could have cost his own race there.
Goodness gracious me, it's all guns blazing here in Portimao on lap number 3. F1 Alex well within DRS range, of course, DRS enabled on this lap. And it just gives the impetus to sucker up into the slipstream, throw your opponent off kilter, and in F1 Alex's case, try and get the lead. There's lots of fighting up ahead, though. Test Will's going for a figurative podium place in this sprint race. Look at the switchback on Pond, and there's contact. Formula Kai's gone round into the infield, onto the grass. It's disaster for the pole sitter in this sprint race, as still side by side, some cars behind, but F1 Alex well within striking range, and the most venomous of starts is going to come to absolute fruition up into P1 on lap number 4 from P10 on the grid. F1 Alex take a bow, not even halfway through, still a long way to go in this sprint race. But what a statement and start that is to proceedings here in Portimao, as Kryzix is going for moves. Someone's gone round. Kryzix has gone round at the right-hander. Formula Kareem's already up into P5. He's managed to swindle so many positions out of nowhere. Kryzix plummeting down the order. It's absolute heartbreak for the ART man.
And it's absolute chaos in that midfield as he tries to desperately fight his way back up. Just losing that track position all the way down to P12, trying to get it back. GB trying to hold that line. He's unable to. And Kryzix, he begins his comeback run, 12th place. It's the second time, actually, that he'll have to do a comeback, with the first time being before. But who's that going for a send? It's Formula Kareem. Speaking of comebacks, he started down at the rear of the regular runners, but he's up into P4. We talk about F1 Alex, we don't talk about Formula Kareem's comeback enough, and he could be making a move on his teammate for the 3rd spot on this field, or as he heads out of the final braking zone, just trying to get the momentum. DRS will be on his side as he heads down the main straight now, trying to stay within the slipstream, and it looks like this should be a pretty one and done move. F1 Alex, by the way, he's going an entire second quicker than the entire field, apart from Formula Kareem at the moment. So these two absolutely a class above the rest, as Pondon now having issues. He's fallen behind Test Will and Ricky. He's down to P6. It was not the straight that he would have wanted. And yeah, he's dropped down to P6 now. Still fights going on behind us. That guy Vince and Hoodie Peter side by side for P8. It looks like Vince has held on to that position. And there's yellow flags out, more yellow flags. I'm not 100% sure who that's for yet. I'm sure that will come to fruition. Maybe T-Mac. But, yeah, it's action all up and down the grid. Don't take your eyes off for a singular second.
Absolutely not. It's what we love about F2. The ferocity, the fire and brimstone can absolutely never be extinguished. It's the absolute epitome of class and racing as Cryzix is immensely side by side down the inside. A replica of Formula Kareem's move for P3 in this race. And now, through goes Cryzix, albeit for P10, but carrying on strong as Pondon as a team radio. Just triple overtook, having no... I couldn't agree more with you, but that is exactly the power and the problem that you have if you are the car in front and you don't have that benefit of the extra rear wing flappage and slipstream. It can absolutely kill your race and kill your momentum. 3 positions dropped in a straight as, good grief, Formula Kareem is on the charge. Holy smokes, people. Right, buckle up, because this is about to get interesting as we approach halfway. All kinds of madness happening ahead as Cryzix goes down the inside of Hoodie Pete. He's beginning his ascension up the order from a mistake earlier on, as here's the Premier of Infratic. He's got a golden ticket to all of this, but not before GB tries to have a little nibble down the inside. It's getting very tasty for the outer reaches of the top 10. To the outside goes Infratic, has P10, only briefly though, because Hoodie Pete comes diving back down the inside again. Absolutely rapturous racecraft from all of the Formula 2 grids. What more can you say, Joseph?
Well, I mean, Portimao is certainly serving up all the action that we asked for and more, and it's only lap 6 of the sprint race. I'm so excited for the rest of this weekend now, considering the action that we've got on track at the moment. The first sector is certainly throwing things up as Infratic not enjoying his time in the Premier car at the moment. It could get even worse as Nagira looks to the outside line for the hairpin. But a big slide, the rear just kicking out a little bit too much. And he's going to have to stay behind. He's going to have to be patient with when he makes this move. Formula Kareem, though, he's not sticking around for too long. A 1:28.2 was his last lap. He's not improved on it, but that was an absolutely ridiculous lap that he wouldn't have had a chance to beat an Ultra Killer. Well, he's got nothing to fight with just because of the speed that Kareem had. And I think F1 Alex will be getting a little bit nervous up there, 1.9 seconds up the road. But for the meantime, he's got that buffer. How much longer will he be able to keep it? I'm not sure. I'm also not sure that these positions will be held for very much longer. GB looking for a move on Hoodie Pete. Dragonflies and T-Mac in the background, ready to pounce on a mistake. GB's off the track. 3 seconds worth of time penalties is his punishment for that. And it doesn't pay off as he moves down a position behind Dragonflies, still fighting for that move. There's a couple of drivers off the track. I think that was Luke Howick and T-Mac in the background there. But these positions are switching so quickly. It's so hard to keep up with. GB, though, he's looking one of the most racy with nothing to show for it.
Sensational swappings going on in Formula 2 as Nogueira's looking to the outside of Infratic. We've seen many moves down the inside before. Haven't seen one round the outside yet. Nogueira's holding on to it here. Turns to the inside line for the left-hander. And a bit of braveness on the brakes will mean Nogueira secures P10 at his home track against Infratic, also adorning the Portuguese flag at his home track as well. Meanwhile, here's Hayden Gullis. The race for the wooden spoon very much on between himself and Matty D. Through the final corner we go. A bit of DRS assistance for Hayden Gullis as I'm watching the gap between Kareem and Alex with, well, bated breath and immense anticipation because it's down to 1.2 seconds and constantly chipping away. DRS being used. Look at the DRS games being played with the slipstream as Matty D weaves to try and break it, but it's not enough. Oh, bit of argy-bargy between them. Hayden goes, I bet this isn't on broadcast. Wrong, sir. You are absolutely on broadcast. Don't mess this one up as it turns to the outside line for turn 3. Perhaps a little sumptuous switchback about to happen as they go through, ascending up the undulations to the left-hander. The rear end getting very squirmy on the Premier car. A yellow flag, though, again up ahead. There's been all kinds of problems. GB looks like he's had an issue. Blackmere behind him as well has just flick spun around. He's got a 10-second time penalty. It is not going their way whatsoever.
Well, I mean, chaos has to come to an end at some point for GB and Blackmere. That point was, well, just then. But that means that the drivers in the middle, they've got a little bit less to contend with, which means they might go a little bit more aggressive as Matty D picks up the second 10-second penalty of this race. This time for ignoring the yellow flags as the fight between himself and Hayden Gullis. Although Blackmere now, I think, is the fight. He picks up that penalty for a move on somebody. But we're watching with Formula Kareem now, as on the lap before he was 1.4 seconds faster than F1 Alex. Now he's 0.8 quicker, so he is absolutely flying on lap 9 of this Grand Prix. Pondon gets through on Nogueira, on Infratic as well, and Nogueira gets through on the Prema driver as well. So the two Portuguese drivers fighting so hard, and Pondon getting caught up in it. Nogueira just having a wobble, and Pondon getting sent off the track. 3 seconds worth of penalties to Nogueira for his troubles. I think Pondon might have gotten a legal overtake there, and he looks like he's just slowed to give the position back in Fratic. Now fighting for that move, not quite close enough, but these 5 drivers, anything could happen, and T-Mac with a big kick on the exit as he's trying to overtake Pondon. And now he's under threat from Dragonfly, so it could switch literally in the space of a corner with a little bit of oversteer on an exit. And that's what Dragonflies was trying to take advantage of. No luck for him on that occasion, but mistakes are being drawn out now.
Momentum's so important in this particular race. In fact, in any race, but especially here with the way the undulations work. Yes, you can go for that overtake. Yes, you can try and dive it down the inside, but then if you don't succeed, you leave it exposed, as we've missed the overtake for the lead. F1 Alex might well have made a mistake somewhere around the lap, because Formula Kareem is in the lead. Formula Kareem living the dream, 1 second out in front. He's broken clear in the Campos car on lap number 10 of the Portimao sprint race. I fused Portugal and Portimao together. That was weird. But anyway, the fights further back are getting spicy. Infratic's got past Nogueira for P8. Dragonflies is loving life in P11, just having a front row seat, munching on the popcorn, waiting for these 3 to make an error. Watching Nogueira, he clattered over the sausage curb, hence why Pondon went so wide. It's unbelievable. They're absolutely pushing to the very, very edge as Kryzix and Testwill are going to town with overtakes. Hit them and that guy Vince. That guy Vince in P7, haven't talked about him much. He's made a calm but collected and very, very rampant rise up the ranks into P7 for Trident. Dragonflies just keeping an eye on proceedings up ahead as they enter into the right-hander. Named Samsung because, well, in terms of the Portimao track, it's a bad apple, and that's exactly why Nogueira's gone round into the infield. He goes so easy to make a mistake on the traction, and that is exacerbated right in front of your very eyes. Nogueira down to P15, and that is very much the sinking feeling as all kinds of smoke billowing up ahead. The driver's pushing to the absolute ragged edge here.
Yeah, and Nogueira just pushing slightly over that ragged edge, and the home fans will be absolutely devastated. But fight's still going on somehow on lap 11 of this Grand Prix. You've still got so many drivers within the DRS range with, well, you've got that pack of T-Mac, Kai and Hoodie Pete. You've got Luke Howick and Dragonflies making moves. You've got Pondon and Infratic playing a little bit of chicken, a little bit of slipstream chicken down the main straight. Pondon comes on top in that battle. Luke Howick looks to come on top in this battle as he sends it down the inside of Dragonflies into turn number 1. He makes that move stick, but penalties are starting to fly in. 3 seconds more for Formula Cars. We're going to get a replay now of, I believe, what is this going to be a replay of? It's going to be F1 Alex losing the rear, losing a little bit of his front wing, and that was the move for the lead. And a little bit less clean than I think Formula Kareem would have liked it to be, but that was completely down to a loss of the rear from F1 Alex. And now 2.5 seconds down. He's in another world, is Kareem. And surely now this is his race to lose.
I couldn't agree more with you. Just under 2.5 tours of Portimao to go. Well, the lead looks like it's signed, sealed, and delivered. The victory looks like it's signed, sealed, and delivered. But answers on a postcard everywhere else, because you cannot write who's going to finish where. The answer is, well, the question is, who is going to get that P3 position? The figurative sprint podium final place. Well, the high-tech of Ricky and the ART of Kryzix. who we definitely haven't talked. He descended to P13 after a spin, and now has made his way back up to P5. What a commanding display from Cryzix, and he's going down the almost trying and thinking about nibbling at the heels of the high-tech ahead, but gets up into P4, down the inside, with the dose of DRS, and now has a second bite of the cherry to gain another position as they exit up the left-hander. Dragonfly's behind me, whilst up to P9. There's a lot of scrappage going on there as well. The question is, does Cryzix think about a move just too far back on that occasion? Has to settle in for P4. Luke Howick and Dragonflies aren't done, by the way. They're still going hammer and tong for P10, as Formula Karim just keeps eking out the advantage. Almost 3 seconds now, courtesy of blistering pace and courtesy of F1 Alex having some slight aerodynamic deficiency, as someone's gone extremely wide. Who is that? It's Matty D, and, well, that's very unlike, well, I guess rather like VAR, depending on how you look at it, because they don't know where the line actually is. But Hayden Gullis has been fighting 2 VAR cars. Both of them have 10-second time penalties. Well, you know what? If nothing else, what we can say on this broadcast is, unlike football, VAR is consistent.
Well, I mean, if we say they're consistent and then the fact that they're down in 17th and 18th, I think that's pretty self-explanatory of VAR's performance. But we're not here to talk about the football. We're here to talk about the racing, and there is a race on for that final podium position. Cryzix moves up into it on the final lap of this Grand Prix. Ricky doesn't look like he's got anything to fight for, and now the chase is on for the Frenchman. He's already sitting on his first sprint podium of the season, and he's got, well, 2 seconds to gain on F1 Alex in this next lap. He's not gaining enough at the moment. He's only gained it by a 10th on that previous lap. Formula Karim, by the way, he's been consistently about 7/10 quicker per lap than everyone else on the entire field. He was only 3/10 quicker on that one than F1 Alex, but he's just managing the pace, it seems, to the victory. He knows that even if he picks up a penalty now, F1 Alex will not be able to catch him. And so surely the Campos driver is going to come across the line to take the sprint victory. Matty D could be making a move on Hayden Gullis. Remember, at this where they are at this point, it doesn't really matter where they are, as GB picks up the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. A 1:27.9 is well, the 19th place driver's score, and that's somebody going off in sector 1. Not sure who that is. That is Blackmere, who well, he's in P18, so it doesn't matter too much. But switching back up to the top, Formula Karim, well, he's certainly been on top of every single metric today, and he's going to come across the line. The sprint victory is his. And F1 Alex, it looked like it was going to go his way for so long after that incredible start, but then he settled into the race and it wasn't quite enough. Second place is where he takes, and then Cryzix with his first podium, well, his first sprint podium of the season in third. 3 drivers with incredible races, an incredible race there for P8 in Fratic comes out on top of, and that's somebody, Gazoo Racing, going round in the background as the last few drivers come across the line. We've got about 30 seconds for Blackmere and GB to be finished, but what a race that was.
Absolutely unbelievable, and simply spellbinding from only one man. Formula Karim, my gosh, he is inevitable. He is absolutely inevitable. You can never, ever prize him away from the top spots. But the last time he actually had a sprint victory was all the way back round 2 when we were at Baku. Today, though, he starts as he means to go on. Formula Karim, living the dream. It's 7th heaven for the Campos man here at the sprint race in round 7. And now, of course, he's got the job to do tomorrow as well. But kudos to F1 Alex as well for claiming P2. Doubly kudos to Cryzix, not only having to make technically 1 comeback, but he made 2 comebacks in the sprint race and still made his way to P3. The ferocious Frenchman on the rostrum, but lifting the trophy high. It's Formula Karim. The cream of the crop rises to the top once again. And ladies and gentlemen, if that was how the sprint race transpired, you are not ready for what the feature race has in store.
Out of interest, how many Karim jokes have you got lined up for this weekend?
Not enough, trust me.
Well, I mean, we've seen 2 so far, and I'm sure we'll see another one as he actually ended up taking the fastest lap back on that final lap of the race. 1:28.2 was a ridiculous time to set, and well, it's just a demonstration. Well, although GB actually went faster, 1:27.9, but it was just a ridiculous race that he ran, and if that's any sign of anything, then we are in for a treat for the feature race. Remember, no wildcard today. The wildcard is that we're at Portimao. But yeah, that was just absolutely sensational. We saw some of the best F1 creators give off probably their best performances that we've seen them do.
Absolutely. I completely jest with you. That was an absolutely phenomenal Portuguese Grand Prix start to the day. And now we can breathe. Just a tiny bit. Only a little bit, though. Because we've still got one shot quali and the feature race to go. But sprint race, I think that encapsulated and embodied really just who the really, really strong performers are out there. Formula Karim, of course, winning that race. We have F1 Alex right up on the front end as well. And then Krysic, like I say, 2 comebacks, still made the top 3 today. Despite all the hardships that some of them might face, they're still able to make their way up.
And that's where the familiarity with the car comes into it, because some of those drivers you saw at the bottom who are reserves generally, well, Formula Karim is a reserve, but some of those drivers at the bottom who are regular F1 drivers or not regular F2 drivers, they aren't used to the machinery. The drivers who finished up at the top today pretty much race consistently in those cars. They have the confidence to do whatever they like in that car because they know what it's going to respond to. They know what's going to work well. They know what's not going to work well. And well, that was a perfect demonstration of that. But I can't get over how much quicker Formula Karim was than the rest of the grid. 7, 8 tenths consistently than the second fastest lap. That is something special, and I'm sure that I'm hoping that we're going to get something similar in the actual race.
No, of course. I mean, there's an ominous shadow of doubt cast over the rest of the grid. Let's be honest. I mean, you can't ignore that pace whatsoever. Let's talk about some other drivers, though. Obviously, we can talk about the top 3 all day, of course, because that's where the headlines are. But everywhere else, I mean, Infratic, P8, first of all, I don't think we haven't really talked about him much at all, to be honest with you, but to say things haven't gone his way sometimes is putting it, slightly underselling it, really. But P8, a good start to the week in Portimao. It's something you can just carry forwards with you. It's psychological warfare that you've always got to take with you, but being in that top 10 battle, getting points in the sprint race, you're able to bring that forwards with you, and I think that can really help him garner some momentum into this feature race.
Yeah, I think he'll certainly need it as well, because he needs that little confidence boost. As you say, things don't necessarily always go his way, and today it feels like he's got a good opportunity to just build now on that sprint performance into the feature race. We know that maybe he's a little bit stronger in the longer distances, so I'm excited to see what he can do. The other home driver that we've got on our books is Nagira. It's fair to say that sprint did not go his way, spinning around and dropping to the back of the field. He'll be hoping for a better performance in the race itself.
Absolutely, but I think the thing that all stems from this, of course, is just how competitive it was and how much the track allows for overtaking, how many opportunities open up throughout the course of it. I mean, we saw it so many times. So many switchbacks going on, so many opportunistic dives going on, whether it's round the outside, inside, take the names out of a hat. Who knows, really? You can just go from anywhere, though. That's what makes this track so great to race, but also the technical trickiness of it is what it's just catching drivers out a little bit opens up the opportunities. But it's all about that momentum, and you can never afford to be too desperate in these scenarios.
No, it's a track where you do have to take risks, but if you take risks, you will get some of the biggest payoffs on the entire calendar. It's the dives into the downhill section. It's the hairpin that we saw a lot of drivers half spin on. If you do try to apply pressure there, you're almost guaranteed to make that overtake, because if you're doing it out of nowhere, because drivers won't expect it, they'll have a certain way that they want to approach that particular corner because of the fact that they really need to approach it in a certain way. The only other corner that I can think of on the calendar that has those same issues is Austria and the downhill run there. But this one is even tighter, so it's just so much more difficult. And then it's a sudden uphill lift, which, again, we don't have much of that on the calendar, if at all, as sharp as that anyway. So I'd say it's probably one of the most difficult corners that you can traverse. And if you're catching a driver off guard ahead of you, you've got, well, if you can pull it off at least, you've got an absolute world of opportunities.
Turn 8, Samsung corner, the one with probably the most tricky of traction zones, called Samsung. Like I say, bad apple. Now, I mean, credit to all the drivers where credit is due, though. They put on one hell of a show, as they always do in Formula 2. But particularly this race, I mean, you couldn't write it at all. You just could not write any of what was happening that race.
No, I mean, you couldn't write it because there wouldn't be enough words to describe it, because of the fact that it was so just sudden. Something would happen and then something else would be happening at the same time, whether it's a move for P10 where they're 3 wide and then Formula Kareem gets past in the lead and then you've got Blackmere spinning around in the background. Anything happened at any point, and it didn't feel as though at any point in those 13 laps, it didn't feel as though we stopped, because even at the end, when we're talking about the victor, we're talking about Formula Kareem coming across the line, we had about 4 cars in contention for that P8 that Infratic picked up. So we could have been talking about that. So it'll be very difficult for our producer to follow that, I'm sure. It'll be difficult for us to follow what he's trying to follow as well. So the channeling through to you will be, it's a more difficult job than he certainly makes it look, our producer that is. But we'll see how he does it in the feature race. I've jinxed him now. It's going to be the TV direction will be shambles, as he's just said in my ear. So we'll see. But if it's anything like that sprint race, whatever we follow will be great.
Absolutely. I think the primary thing I can gather from that, though, apart from the overtaking and how everyone did extremely well at putting on a good show, is the DRS demolition. We've, I think, seen just how strong it is. I mean, Pondon got swamped, 3 cars in a single straight. We saw multiple occasions of multiple cars making their way past. If you are in front and you don't have that DRS, you are effectively a sitting duck. So it's just got to be paramount that you use your pace to perfection and as immaculately as possible, because otherwise you can get caught out, and you can't afford to be shipping time, especially if you want to be trying to reach those higher points paying positions.
Absolutely not. It will be so difficult for you to make it back into the race if you fall out of the DRS. We saw with I think Hayden and Matty, before they started fighting, they were only about 1 second off the field. That exponentially increased as they fought, which is fair enough. That is going to cost them time. But then at the same time, they couldn't get back into the race. They just dropped off. The only exception that we saw to that rule throughout the entire race was F1 Alex, and it was Kareem, where Kareem was able to just climb back up. But even before that, Alex he'd built that gap to the rest of the field. It looked like he was going to dominate that race. It was just the sheer speed of Kareem that proved an exception to the rule. But it's very much an exception to the rule. And yeah, if you're able to break that DRS, you're flying. But if you're not able to break that DRS, as we saw with that mid-pack, that's where it gets interesting.
Well, speaking of supreme Kareem speed, here's a session that epitomises that particular phrase. Qualifying will be soon on the horizon, and also the feature race for that matter. So, while we're here, let's have a little bit of fun. Joseph, who do you predict will be our pole sitter for Portimao tonight?
Oh, it's hard to look past Formula Kareem. It is really hard to look past him with the pace that he was putting in the race. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if we saw the time that he was putting in being the time that he was putting in the race consistently being about pole, maybe not pole, maybe that's a bit too far, but in the mid pack at least, with the 28.2s. We'll see as we head through it, but it's so hard to look past him.
Of course, no, his pace is on another planet in terms of his pace. The one thing with Formula Kareem, though, is he does like a side quest. He does like to start from the back of the grid. Just make things a little bit interesting for himself. So I don't actually think he's going to be on pole purely for that reason. I mean, he did it once in the sprint race. Why not go and complete more side quests in the feature race as well? I am going to say I'm going to put money on Kryzix. I think Kryzix has got some great pace out there. Got called out a few times in the sprint race, but came back to finish P3. I think he's got some absolutely searing pace on him. I see him getting pole position. Watch it flop. Now to the feature race, Joseph. Who do you think is going to take top honours tonight?
Well, I feel like I have to play devil's advocate now and I have to not go for Kareem because I went for the boring answer for the pole position. So he's going to bin it lap 1.
Great.
I don't know what barrier he's going to bin it into, but he's going to bin it into some sort of barrier.
Sorry, Kareem.
I'll go with one of the homeboys. A feel-good story for Infratic. There you go.
Ah, lovely. I like it. I like a feel-good story. That's excellent. I too was going to go for one of the Portuguese guys originally, but I'm going to say it's going to be. I'll curveball it. I'm going to say Ricky's going to win it. There's a curveball for you all. I think Ricky has a decent shout. Stayed at the front, stayed out of trouble in P4, but it all comes down to qualifying. Let's ride on board. I'll say with F1, Alex. Joseph, take us away for a lap of Portimao.
Right, so coming round the final corner, it's a long stretch round there, but that's not what we're looking at. We're not looking at it yet, at least, as we're going to head into turn number 1. And it's one that tightens up on you. This track feels so wide until you get to turn number 1, which will make it incredibly difficult. And there you go. There's your prediction out the window. Kryzix has gone the wrong way, and he is disqualified from the session. But we're watching on board with F1 Alex as we ride up the first significant undulation. Get Formula Kareem. There we go. They're both going to start from the back of the grid. Our predictions out the window. But now it's down to that difficult corner, Samsung, as you mentioned it, down into it, and then trying to keep on the gas as much as you can on the exit, because as hard as it is, you've got to try to keep that minimum speed up. Now a kink into a longer corner where you have to prepare for that longer corner rather than just fly into that kink at full speed, especially in these cars where the rear end seems to step out. Another undulation as we go up the hill to a blind crest. And it's an incredibly long corner once again, trying to maintain the speed. Third gear is what F1 Alex uses. It's down the hill just to go straight back up the hill again. And the left-hander will be one of the last braking zones on the track. It is the last braking zone if you're brave enough. Realistically, that corner that we've just seen F1 Alex go through is the last one. And then it's a long, sweeping final corner that F1 Alex is going to traverse. And it appears to be that the Invicta racing car is going to be on pole position. Indeed, he is at 127.073. And that is pole position for, well, one of the quickest drivers over this weekend so far.
The astonishing F1 Alex does it again. It's pole position for the Invicta driver. However, look at how close the grid is. It's going to be a rather spicy spectacle. Nogueira, P2 in his home race. Fantastic. Ricky 3rd, T-Mac 4th. That guy Vince in 5th. GB in 6th. Luke Howick 7th. Formula Kai lines up 8th on the grid. Testball 9th. Ultra Killer in 10th. And then the rest of the grid is Dragonflies, Pondon, Infratic, Hoodie Pete, Blackmere, Kryzix, who disqualified himself. Thanks for fulfilling my prediction, mate. Matty D, Formula Kareem, and Hayden Gullis are there as well, just as quickly as darkness descends on a night in Portugal, wake up because it's race day, everybody. Time moves very quickly in the Creator Series, in case you couldn't tell. And it's feature race time in what is clear blue skies. It is scorching sun in Portimao. Rather a contrast to the sprint race in Brazil last week, where there was the factor of rain, the elements coming to play. Could still be more of that, you never know. However unlikely it might seem. But there we go. So, race to come, Joseph. I mean, all the drivers seem to navigate that pretty well on the whole, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, on the whole, 14 drivers finishing laps and, 11 of them pretty much being within a second of each other. It was close. It was just a very, very solid qualifying session with a few surprising. And Nogueira on the front row, the home runner. And, that's it. I could have made a correct prediction, but just the wrong way, because it could be the other Portuguese boy that comes home. It was Ricky that you went for, wasn't it? He's 3rd on the grid. If we have a look at our qualifying predictions, I'm now expecting those two to come together on lap 1, turn 1. But we'll have to see. It is going to be certainly a very interesting race as we head to the formation lap. And F1 Alex gets a great start in comparison to everyone else. He's absolutely, he's eager to get going is the word I was looking for there.
Starting as he means to go on is F1 Alex, one of the few drivers actually that has gone for the soft tyre in this race. Of course, only 2 dry tyre compounds in Formula 2, as opposed to the 3 they get in Formula 1. It's luxury, I tell you. But softs and mediums are the play here in Portimao, getting the faster tyres out of the way. Not choosing in this case, neglecting to have the harder tyre on first to weather the storm on that, and then when the car's a bit lighter, a bit more nimble, getting on the softer tyres, as Blackmere and Hayden Gullis have already disqualified themselves on the formation lap. Their tyres are going to be igloos. So, meanwhile, all the drivers that are still going on the formation lap, just prepping themselves for the start of this race. Of course, they've already done it once today, the start as it were, but those soft tyre runners have got to make it count, because we know how quickly it can drop off and how that crossover can be so potent.
Yeah, the undercut is so crucial on this game. But having said that, a lot of the drivers have actually gone for the reverse. They've gone for the overcut, which means they are going to have more speed at the end of the race. But yeah, we'll have to wait. We will have to wait and see what happens. It could be the case that F1 Alex, Ricky, and T-Mac just fly away from the rest of the grid, and then that is the end of that's the end of the session. By the way, big ups to T-Mac for qualifying in that 4th place, because he wasn't nowhere in that sprint race, but he was a little bit irrelevant, if that's a kind term to use. We didn't see him much, but last week he was very there in the sprint race, so it was just a surprise to see him down there. But the commentator's driver of the day last week, 4th place. That's not too bad. They could also have problems in the pit lane where the 2 Invicta cars come in on the same lap. Let's hope there's communication there. But all the drivers are lining up on the grid. I believe we're only waiting now for Matty to come up to the liners. There we go. There's an attempt of a 360. I predicted it in the sprint race, and there was a major fail in the actual race. But the 5 lights are just a couple of moments away.
Here we go. Just wait for the anticipation to brew, to concoct an atmosphere of pure, chaotic joy and jubilation. And then soon, Formula 2 will be underway when the symphony of V6 sound ignites. When the red lights come on, in about 6 calendar years. We are still, the green flag is waving, but we are waiting. So all the poetry has been put paid to, because we are still waiting for the red lights to come on and then go out subsequently. Is that Matty D angled further towards Lisbon than the apex of turn 1? Look at that. he's heading towards the grass more than the actual track. That's unbelievable. Perhaps the game doesn't like his angles. They've decided, you know what, you all can't race now. What have you done? Stop it. Well, I think you've all gathered by this point that I am just waffling for time, because I think the lobby has gone kaput. So it might well be a reset situation. We're going to have to wait and find out. Unless the red lights miraculously come on now. 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 It's not working, is it? Well, we have more time to kill Joseph as we wait for the red lights to come on for the race in Portimao. They've got to do the formalities all over again. And kind of plays with your mind a little bit as a driver. You've done all that preparation work. You've put the tyres into the correct window. You've positioned yourself exactly where you want to. Your head's in the game, and then suddenly all of that dissipates, and you've got to reset and do it all over again. It must be torture for them.
Well, if that's where Matty wanted to be, then we've got other problems on our hands. But
it's a VAR.
It will be. They're going to have to delay, because the focus that they'll have at the start of the race will be heightened. It will be the highest that they will have, but they've got to delay that a little bit longer. That's going to be a struggle. They will all be sitting there just waiting for those lights to come on, as we are as well. But at this point, I'm expecting a session has been red flagged. Race control has red flagged the session. We will be waiting for, I presume, a lobby restart in the next few moments. But yeah, it'll just, they'll have to find that spot once again. And has the lobby just started? Has the lights finally come on
Lights out, away we go. Get ready for chaos. Everybody's going to crash, and it's going to be a great time, ladies and gentlemen. This is the bit you don't normally see, unless they are all deciding to go hammer and tonk. Never mind, someone's gone further towards Porto. Someone spun off. Hayden Cullis is off for a sandbox trip. They're all basically sauntering around, diving into the wall. There goes a high-tech car. This is all the fun and games you don't see in the background whenever a lobby needs to reset. Session has been red flagged. This is exactly what happens when it does get red flagged, as that guy Vince turns into a space rocket as he heads towards the hairpin corner. Well, that's some fireworks for you, ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted to see it. There you go. Oh, a black... I thought it was a black flag. He's got a million 10-second time penalties. This is all chaos you don't get to see, but there we go. Well, let's talk about Portimao a bit as they find new and creative ways to clatter themselves into the abyss. Portimao, real life, in Formula 1 at least, 2020 and 2021. Joseph, any fun abiding memories of Portimao in real life Formula 1?
Oh, well, I mean, it's... To me, it never really stood out as a track. It really came into its own on the F1 game, I think, is where we see the best of it, because even though we don't see those drivers in real life going for those risky moves because they've got a hell of a lot more laps, they've got a hell of a lot more at stake, because if they crash like they're desperately trying to here, then it actually matters in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it stands out more in league racing to my mind, and it stands out more for these sorts of moments in my mind. Not necessarily intentionally. What they're doing is, I think Tesswell he's going for the record. 50 seconds is what we picked up last week. He's on 40. He's on 50. There we go. Full minute. Can we get a full minute worth of penalty? No.
Testwell, what have you done? I was going to say, speaking of stake, Kicksauber F1 team as Ultra Killer plummets into the barrier, and that will conclude proceedings from there. There's your red flag, ladies and gentlemen. That's
the race, we're done.
That's it. Ultra Killers won the Portuguese Grand Prix. I'm so sorry you missed it. It lasted about 10 corners. Anyways, fun abiding memory for Portimao for me in real life, at least. McLaren, we know they're a frontal force now in Formula 1. Brazil didn't go their way in the main race, let's put it that way. But, generally speaking, they have had a fast car. We've gotten used to it. Back in 2020, that were luxury. That was a luxury. A couple of podiums for Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz here and there. But Portimao is where Carlos Sainz came into his own. A little bit of race just disrupted the flow of some of the drivers a little bit. A lot of them couldn't get their tyres fired up. Carlos Sainz took the lead of the race. I believe it was halfway through lap 2, or at least part of the way. Got a switch back at the hairpin and led for a little bit, which McLaren 2020 terms almost unheard of. But nowadays, of course, it's a bit of a commonplace. So there you go. There's a fun memory for me. And like I say, Lewis Hamilton, the dominant driver of Portimao. Yes, we only have been there twice, but stats don't lie. Well, we've got a bit of a wait as we get back refreshed and recuperated for the actual feature race to come along. So, let us talk about as well, we talked about tyre situation a little bit, obviously, but they have got to abide by, whether they also play with the games of waiting for a safety car, not waiting for a safety car, whether they do try and roll the dice a little bit here in this feature race. We might see a little bit of it, but realistically, they probably just want to keep it clean and not get too caught up in their own little skirmishes.
Yeah, I think in comparison to the sprint race, where they only had 13 laps and they could just go absolutely hammer and tongs, 37 laps is a lot longer, obviously, but it's going to be more of an endurance than a flat-out sprint. And so those battles that we saw for P10, those 4-wide moments, those 2x2 moments, might not see any of those, probably will, knowing some of the drivers in this grid, but we're less likely to see moments like that at the very least. And it's going to be more of a mind game. It's going to be more of a mental strategy. Something as well to note, to play into the strategies, not only waiting for the safety car, those sorts of things. I'm sure we're going to get a safety car at some point today. It's just a matter of when. But it's very difficult to see, because all of the tyres have just been released to the public. We know exactly what tyre everyone's going to go on. So they might overthink it a little bit. They might switch their strategy up that one driver that was on those mediums in the top 4, they might switch onto the softs. They might feel as though they need to keep up with those other 3. So a lot of things to play on their mind in the strategy.
Absolutely. And you spoke about the undercut earlier, actually, which is a very good point. Of course, it is ferociously powerful, but equal to that as well, and what the balance of power is that if you get that tyre offset by a couple of laps and sort of equalise the time a little bit, even if it's by a couple of laps, you gain such an advantage just by having those slightly fresher tyres. So undercuts might be the play, but I was going to say by the end of the race, but come maybe a few laps into that particular stint, it can have its own repercussions.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into a race, whether it's a little thing, whether it's something huge. There's so much that plays into it. You have to get a lot of luck on your side, as well as nailing everything. And well, week in, week out, you can't get it all right. So it's just about minimizing the mistakes that you make, and then hoping that there's no external factors, external issues that we have. We're back into the lobby, which means we should be getting going in the next few minutes for the Portuguese sprint race here in the Creator Series Formula 2 race.
Now, I can't remember, because they did do a red flag back all the way in round 1 in Singapore, and they did another one-shot quali. So I can't quite tell at the moment whether they are going for it. My guess is they are, but if they are not, it will be the same grid. Could be interesting. I imagine, though, they've got to do all the hard work all over again. And ladies and gentlemen, oh, yes, they do. Let's ride on board with someone different this time. Let's ride on board with Ricky this time. And once again, Joseph, take it away. Stage is yours, my friend.
Well, I ran through most of my main points on the first lap, but we'll go through it once again as we head around the Portimao circuit, and we've got turn number 2 here, as I said earlier. That's a minimum speed corner. A lot of the corners are how much can you keep that minimum speed up. That is one of them, and the exit on the next one is you have to flow through a lot of these corners as Crysis gets disqualified once again. Oh, the prediction's gone wrong. Let's pretend this is the first time we've done this qualifying. But yeah, as we ride on board with Luke Howitt, the minimum speed, the flowy sections, a little bit of a lock-up from Luke, as he doesn't hit the apex as much as he would have liked. You have to just get into a rhythm here, unless, well, if you don't get into a rhythm, you're really going to struggle. And Luke here, to be fair, he looks like he's in a bit of a rhythm, and then he lost his rear on the exit. And those sorts of moments can cost you a lot of time. You're going to have to either go very easy as to just build your momentum back up, or you're going to push probably too hard and lose all of your time as they come out now. The final corner beckons for Luke Howick for our F2 grid, and it's a long sweeping one as they head down onto the main straight. DRS will only just be open for some of the drivers as they come across the line, and it's Nogueira, the homeboy, on pole position this time. So it's the same front row, but it's the other way around.
I mean, look at the improvement in some of the lap times as well, but the hometown hero has come to play here in Portimao. Nogueira on pole position in this definitely first qualifying session of the evening. F1 Alex P2, that guy Vince in P3 this time, with Ricky 03 not getting third, it's P4 this time. Luke Howick in 5th, GB in 6th, Test Will in 7th, Formula Kai consistent in P8, Dragonflies in 9th, Infratic in 10th, with Hoodie Pete, Pondon, Blackmere, Ultra Killer, Cryzix, Matty D, T-Mac, Hayden Gullis, and Formula Kareem plumb last on the grid. Thanks for the predictions, guys. Really cool. And ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because once again, in a heartbeat, it's going to be race day. There it is. The sun rises on a Portuguese Grand Prix feature race once again. I'm getting a touch of deja vu. I feel like I've been here before. Anyway, it's once again, it's blazing sun. Once again, there should be no worries about the weather. They should just be able to go balls to the wall, all guns blazing, and have a good time out there.
Yeah, I mean, it will open it up for them. They will be able to push as much as they possibly can within reason, because remember, they've got 37 laps ahead of them, 38 if you're counting the formation lap, to just really get into that rhythm that I mentioned during the first qualifying session, and filter through and just develop themselves. It may not be a formation lap, actually. They may be going straight to the action. We will have to see in the next few seconds as we switch to the main screen. You can see some of the pit boxes. You can see the drivers. And yeah, we are indeed going to go to the formation lap. Some of the strategies are, they're looking a little bit different as Nogueira on pole position. Those mediums are staying consistent for him. But yeah, the likes of, well, I bigged up T-Max so much in that first qualifying session. He's now down in 17th, having been disqualified. So thanks for that. But yeah, F1 Alex and Ricky, the two of the top 4 on those soft. GB making it 3 in the top 9. That's a completely different race to the one that we thought would be running before.
Absolutely, quite right. Still only a handful of drivers running those soft tyres. F1 Alex again staying loyal to the soft tyre strategy, thinking that this is the optimum way forwards, but otherwise it is medium tyres. Here, there, and almost everywhere, as Nogueira gets very interested with another car. Don't want to get disqualified from the formation lap unless you like being an Eskimo. Through the right-hander they go. A bit racy on the formation lap, just getting their eye in. I think they already did in the sprint race personally, but we'll gloss over that. Nogueira just trying to make his way back up to the front of the field and stamp his authority, saying, "No, it's my pole position. I get to park first." So there you are. Everywhere else, though, GB in P6, some team radio from GB. 5 soft tyres, 15 mediums. I believe you're right. I think it's, yeah, well, it's a big disparity as a Prem has gone off. It's all happening here on this formation lap in Portugal, and that's only the formation lap. We have got a big slobber knocker to go on in the feature race. And Joseph, you staying true to your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll have to see. I think I may be right in saying it's one of the Portuguese lads, but at the moment it's looking like it's looking more like it's going to be Nogueira. But we'll see what Infratic can do on those softs. We saw what the drivers near the rear of the field did we saw what the drivers at the rear of the field did in that first session where Formula Kareem threw his way up the field. F1 Alex threw his way up the field, and we had so many drivers just fighting their way up the field. It felt like those at the bottom were just in another world to those at the top. Who on earth is that going running his own race separately? It looks like he's slotted in now. They've all slotted in, and well, the 5 lights hopefully should only be a couple of seconds away.
Keep your fingers crossed, people, because we have been through the trenches today leading up to this one as Ultra Killer saunters up like it's a Tesco car park to his grid slot. And then hopefully we will be getting the 5 red lights. Here they are, ladies and gentlemen. Turn up the noise. Lights out and away we go, and Nogueira gets a decent start on the mediums, but F1 Alex using those soft tyres to good effect, already pulling alongside, biting into the bitumen and down the inside to immediately take the lead of the feature race. Little bit of defensive positioning just to ascertain that he is in the prime position as Ricky, also on the softs, moves up to P3. Have they all got through the first few corners safely as GB and that guy Vince go head to head, and GB wins rather quickly. Down the inside goes Ricky though. My prediction proving faithful as Nogueira has a bit of a slide out of the hairpin. Soft tyre traction is supreme, and through goes Ricky. Down the inside goes GB and the Trident car as well. Nogueira shipping positions here, there, everywhere. Left, right and centre, and there's contact between himself and GB. Out of Samsung as down the hill they descend. GB ascends up the order once again as, goodness gracious me, a conglomeration of cars collected together through the right-hander as GB says that was a lovely start too. Right, it was. Formula Kai behind going up into P7. It's all action already.
Those softs are working for those drivers that took that gamble. Only 5 of them took that gamble. They've all gained positions off the start. Ultra Killer is in P11. He's the lowest of the lot, but he did start in P14. So yeah, the top 3 now are all on the softs, and you've got Infratic as well. He's gained 4 positions. My prediction for that race victory, he could be looking forward. That's if Nogueira doesn't look forward on that guy. Vince And he doesn't, but who's that in the background? Huge contact. Testwheel goes off the circuit. There was a blue car involved there as well. And Testwheel has dropped all the way down now. P14. It's where he drops to. There's a blue car again. I think it's a different one involved in this one. As that's Formula Kai. Really struggling. No damage for him. And he's going to try to get that momentum back up. But as I said at the start, momentum is so hard to build up. And he drops to P10. It's chaos behind him. What on earth is going on? There's so many drivers trying to fit into the same part of the track. This is absolutely insane.
Dragonflies with front wing damage from all of that ordeal. Formula Karim, by the way. Literally Formula Karim the dream. He is up 11 positions already and made that 12. Up into P7 he goes. The ailing car of Dragonflies has nothing on the Campos man. Through he ascends up the order as Hoodie Pete goes into combat with Ultra Killer. Has the inside line for the left-hander. Just kills his momentum a bit too much on the grass, on the exit. And so Ultra Killer lives to fight another day. 2 laps only into this 37-lap event, and we can hardly keep up. Pondon and Hayden Gullis, meanwhile, they're going into combat behind. There they are, side by side. In the background, just gone through the last corner. And continuing side by side, Hayden Gullis just keeping his nose in the play as F1 Alex takes the fastest lap of the race in the first proper lap that they're able to grit their teeth down. Meanwhile, down the straight we go. Hayden Gullis. Meanwhile, down the inside, Krysix has caught them both unawares. Hayden Gullis clatters over the curbs. Krysix causing chaos. Up into P13 he goes. That is unbelievable from the ART driver. And Hayden and Pondon, once again, goes side by side. But they better be careful. Testwheel is on the prowl.
This is ridiculous because in that moment, we also missed a 3 wide into turn 1. That is how much action that we've got going on. And it was almost in the same shot with all these drivers so tightly knit together. Testwheel, you said he was waiting in the background. Blackmere was waiting in the background of the Rodin Carlin, and he's made his move up, although there is actually battling going on for that P16 spot between all 4 of them. But Team Radio from Pondon, fun battles, but they are losing so much time as Ultra Killer 1.7 seconds up to the rest of the field. Ricky has 2.3 seconds. He's behind F1 Alex by that gap. And then 3 seconds between GB and that guy Vince. So gaps are beginning to form. And GB, he's looking to take advantage of that. Ricky does not have the DRS. GB is going to as they head down the straight. DRS will be open for him. And there's the advantage that he's able to gain from it. He blasts past into second place ahead of the high-tech. And that is going to be his position. Nailed on 2.1 seconds now behind F1 Alex. The chase is on lap 4 of this Grand Prix. And you get the feeling that the action has only just begun. Who's that going off in the background there? Not 100% sure, but it's non-stop, isn't it? There's another 3 wide moment. There's Hayden Gullis and Pondon once again fighting. Hayden getting the exit and looking for the overtake on Hoodie Pete instead to the inside. Can he make it? Hoodie Pete is squeezing him as much as he can, but he's run himself off the circuit. He's outbraked himself, and he's gone from trying to defend 1 position to losing 2. Hayden Gullis, he's gained that position on Hoodie Pete, but he's lost another one to Pondon. So after all of that, he's stabilised positions. But as I just said, it doesn't stop.
2 drivers completely superglued to each other in the form of Pondon and Hayden Gullis. And we were talking about that in the race before us. Here's that guy Vince and Formula Karim up to P6 already. He's trying to ascend up to P5 as well, but DRS is enabled, of course. Here on lap number 4, it was enabled last lap as well, but Karim will get the benefit of the extra rear wing flap opening and the extra bit of slipstream hunkering down with the aerodynamics through the final corner. In the background is Infratic. Hardly talked about Infratic. He's made some great progress from P10 so far, as has GB. But Formula Karim with DRS and slipstream, you're watching the perspective of Infratic as through goes the Red Bull liveried Campos car. Has the inside line, tries to seal P5 in his account, and by the time they get to turn 3 at Lagos, he is through, but only just into P5, cutting across, getting the position, and look who's here to pick up the pieces. It's Infratic, also with a dose of DRS, pulls ahead of the Trident car and into P6, ascends the Premier Man. Absolutely fantastic. But like I was saying, Joseph, we talked about this before, and Pondon just said it there. You can see it. It's visualized in front of your very eyes. The battles, so much fun. The racecraft, rapturous and rampant all the way down the field. But the amount of time you lose just having those battles, surely it can't be worth it in the context of your own race.
Well, this is what you watch Creator Series for, isn't it? It's these battles between some of your favourite creators. Infratic is one that I watch quite regularly, and I'm watching him now climb up the field. They broke the top 7 and broken DRS to those behind, but that's the main problem. Ultra Killer 1.9 seconds behind Vince now, and you know that's because he's been fighting Nagira almost 4 seconds off the top of the field. I don't know if that's because he's been fighting or just because of the pace advantage that the top 3 have at the moment, but those gaps are spreading out. The field is thinning, and Formula Kareem, he moves up into P4, the lead of this group. It'll be interesting to see the time that he's able to gain on those ahead as Dragonflies and Pondon retire from the session. The first virtual safety car is out on track, and it's because the ART and the Campos have had issues. Where does it down the main straight? It looks like they've had a problem.
Looks like a Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz-esque situation where they came together in Baku. Goodness gracious, Infratic, well, he says exactly, I think, what everybody else is thinking. Kareem's pace is insane, and you're damn right it is. He's already up to P4. Now a virtual safety car, just to level it off a little bit. Just give them some time to rest and recuperate, only for a tiny bit, though. And then they're back to racing very, very shortly. But surely not. I do see the virtual safety car graphic. But is that a safety car I see? Just going through Sector 1, just gone through turn number 4, heading towards the hairpin. The safety car has been called out in this early phase. Surely it's too early to come off the soft tyres. In fact, I imagine I can probably educatedly guess it is too early. As Pondon says, how has that happened? Hopefully, we have the answers very soon. The producer in our ear saying he was reading chat. Oh no. Well, ladies and gentlemen, lap number 6 of the Portuguese Grand Prix. It's time for a bit of recuperation for all of our drivers. But here's the order so far, as we're going to line up behind the safety car for a little bit. F1 Alex was in a commanding position out in front, but of course it is all neutralised. Ricky in P2, GB in P3. Never got a podium in the Creator Series, but is pulling the trigger in the pit lane, Joseph.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of the drivers going into the pit lane. It'll be interesting to see if all of the soft runners come in. Nagira comes in as well. All of them, apart from F1 Alex, who's prioritising track position, but that gap that he's built up, that'll be annihilated. And behind him, he will have Formula Kareem just literally right on his... He'll have Formula Kareem, the quickest driver in the weekend so far, right on his rear. And... so it's looking like he wasn't actually able to pit, I'm being told, onto those medium compounder tyres. So he's been hung out to dry there. And as I mentioned, he's got the quickest driver on the field this weekend behind him, Formula Kareem, who actually doesn't hold the fastest lap currently. That is Kryzik's, but Kareem's had to slice his way through the field. He started right down the rear of it, P19. And so, well, he's on lap 7 of this Grand Prix. He's in P2, so he was pretty successful in that, but it meant that he's been busy not trying to get the fastest lap, just trying to get through everybody. I believe we've got a replay coming in of whatever it was that happened down the main straight, which means we'll get a little bit more clarity. This is on board with Pondon heading out of the final corner. Hayden Gullis behind him, but Dragonflies, who was the other driver who retired, just ahead of him. And not... Oh, who was that? Who was that? That was Luke Howitt, who was having issues down the main straight, and Pondon, nothing he could really do about it. And that's incredibly unfortunate for pretty much all 3 of those drivers. F1 Alex is going to come into the pits now. Devastating, really, that he's had to come in. He's lost that lead that he built up earlier. He's probably going to drop down to at the kindest, maybe like a P12, maybe P14 is more realistic. But yeah, and he'll be on those mediums at the restart. Nagira has come in once again. He's picked up 10 seconds worth of penalties, but he came in from the softs. Look, he came in from the mediums onto the softs. He's now come in on the softs once again. He's one of only 2 who came in for the softs. He switches back to, I believe that is that a new set of mediums. We'll have to wait and see. But T-Mac, he is on a set of softs. It is a new set of medium compounded tire. Who is that coming into the pits as well? I think that's Luke. Is that T-Mac coming in as well? I think indeed it is. And they both just tried to switch straight back. They reckon they can do about 30 laps on those mediums.
Very, very bold indeed. Perhaps a lot of them feeling, I mean, surely 30 laps is too long. I'm going to regret saying that, but 30 laps, surely just a bit too much to eke out of the medium tyres. Surely the pace deficit will be tremendous between newer tyres, but they, of course, do have that tyre offset. They do have that advantage to play with when the safety car comes to an end. 6 laps fresher, a lot of them, or 7 laps if your name is F1 Alex, T-Mac, and Nogueira. Perhaps going to the end of the race being the play. But for the medium runners, I mean, a lot of them, it's difficult to know whether you're shooting yourself in the foot in a way. Yes, in the case of Nogueira, he has managed to make both tyre compounds. He's been on both of them, so now he can just run to the end of the race if he wants to. But will the pace differential be a bit too much? Those are the questions, and we will have the answers for you as we go on. Behind the safety car, then, we have only one man who's managed to go from last to first in this race, courtesy of the fact he was the only one that started last, and that's Formula Kareem. 18 positions gained. And that's somewhat of a statement, wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, he made that statement in the sprint race. He has absolutely always blown that statement out of the water. He's come out with a new one, and this new one is just earth-shatteringly quick. And, yeah, the way he's been able to slice through the field is, well, his name is in the Creator Series Discord is Joy to Kareem for a reason, and he's up into the lead of this race, and it doesn't feel as though he's going to lose that anytime soon. As much as those behind Vince, he'll be trying to draw alongside down the straight. Kryzix currently holds the fastest lap. He's been quick over the weekend. Those who are on the newer tyres as well. So Ricky's the leader of those. GB, Infratic, Ultra Killer, they've been quick so far this race, but it just feels like nobody is going to even hold a candle to Kareem. He could be on whatever tyres. He could be doing last week's strategy. He's forgotten that even though we are in a Portuguese-speaking country, we're not actually doing the strategy that we had in Brazil, where they had to use the softs, mediums, and the wets. He may as well do that because with the pace advantage he's got, he'll probably be matching the rest of the field when he's on those wet tyres, when everyone else is on those softs. So he's just... There's not enough superlatives to describe Kareem at the moment, and yeah, they're going to struggle to go 30 laps on mediums. It's his assessment of it, and well, that's why he's not coming for the softs, because if they're going to struggle on the mediums, then the softs are going to be so much harder.
30 laps on the softs. If anyone manages to... Blackmere, I'm watching you. If you do 30 laps on the softs, you get driver of the day instantly. That's what I'm saying. Nogueira's gone for a spin, meanwhile. Sorry. What on earth's happened there? He's gone for a little tumble. So, goodness me. He's gone on to... Okay, so he's gone on to an original pair of... Now, that is very interesting from Nogueira. Not entirely sure why. Well, it makes sense because he has cleared his penalty now, but then he's going to have to pit again, possibly, to get some newer tyres on, and then not catch up to the back of the pack. It's all unravelled for our pole sitter in a matter of moments, in rather unprecedented fashion. Speaking of unprecedented, we've already talked about Formula Kareem. A lot of other drivers, though, have benefited hugely. We haven't talked about, well, Kryzix, we haven't talked about much. He, too, started from near the back of the grid. He's now up to P4, for instance. Hayden Gullis now up to P5. Test Wheel P6. Hoodie Pete's up to P7. Yes, it is for track position. They do have the older tyres, but they have made good gains just by wanting to brave it out on these medium tyres. Formula Kai as well, by the way. Caught up in a little skirmish earlier on. He's in P3 in the Dams car. That guy, Vince, looking racy, in P2. The real question is, are they able to hold that track position? And Kareem's echoed my sentiments there, Joseph, in terms of they are going to struggle on 30-lap mediums. But perhaps that's not what they're trying to do. Perhaps there is another pit stop to be at play. As Ultra Killer says, I've got Matty behind me. Well, okay. Ultra Killer's made his assessment on what having Matty behind him is going to happen. That's the stipulations for you, ladies and gentlemen. But perhaps, like I say, that maybe isn't the strategy. As the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So Kareem can now control the pace of the field, bunch them up, pull the trigger when he wants to. But like I say, as I'll finally try and get my point across without interrupting myself, is that being on those new mediums, yes, they'll struggle for 30 laps, but perhaps that's not the play. Perhaps there is another pit stop to just turn things on its head a little bit here.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll be hoping for another safety car. I'm pretty sure everybody on this grid will be hoping for another safety car. At least, well, most of all, Nogueira probably, as he's 32 seconds behind the field. He'll be hoping that Kareem holds everyone up significantly, but well, I find that unlikely as Kareem heads around the final. I find it unlikely that he's going to back everyone up that much as he heads around the final corner, weaving, getting ready to get going. His weaves are shortening, meaning that he is ready to go, but he waits for the very last second. The green flag is waved once again here in Portimao, and Kryzix has timed it perfectly. He makes it past Formula Kai before we even get to turn number 1. He could be making a move on that guy, Vince. There's not enough space as the corner tightens up through turn number 1, and Vince has enough about him to defend into turn number 2. Formula Kai defending from Hayden Gullis in the meantime behind, which means he can't attack Kryzix, so that he's not feeling any pressure, the man in third. But Hayden making Formula Kai defend to the inside. He's going to go for a switchback. Maybe he's going to try to hang it around the outside. He's going to try and hang it around the outside. That was the wrong move, as he's got Test Will now trying to fight with him. F1 Alex is making his way back up the field. Well, he's trying to make his way back up the field after an unfortunate pit stop issue. And, well, he's made his way up to those who came into the pits, so he's in a perfect position to do so. GB, he's running in P10. Luke Howick, he's gotten past Ultra Killer, who now doesn't have Matty D behind him. Thankfully for him, Matty has dropped down to P16, presumably an incident, surely, which has saw him drop those positions. But Test Will and Hayden, there's a little bit of a lag, which means that we can't get the full positions. But Hayden, he's dropped down now. That's an awful time for him to make a mistake, because F1 Alex, he is absolutely ridiculously fast, and Hayden knows that's not his fight, and he lets him go. Ricky could be trying to make his way through as they head down the main straight now. Indeed, he will. An Ultra Killer makes it past Hoodie Pete. He could be looking for that same move, but Kryzix finally makes it past that guy, Vince. He's been threatening to do that for the last couple of laps, and that position has been sealed for the Frenchman. He's up into P2. 1.7 seconds, though, separates him and Kareem. So it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get through. Hayden Gullis is in AI, which means that he's going to drop down, although he's just re-overtaken F1 Alex. So we're not 100% sure whether he is in AI or not, because surely the AI isn't going to fight that hard. In the meantime, in Fratic, he's got 3 seconds worth of penalties. He was trying to fight with GB. Ultra Killer now has 3 seconds worth of penalties, and I'm sure we'll be seeing them fly in soon as Alex finally makes his way past Hayden.
You know what AI also stands for, everyone? Alien intelligence. And Hayden Gullis there with some tractor beaming of the highest order to get back into P6. F1 Alex finally gets past. He's well on his way, putting the new tyres to good use. But the front two, we've been waiting for this. One up 18 positions, one up 13 positions, both in big contention for the championship. The top two will lock horns quite soon in Portimao, should Kryzix close the gap, as GB has got horrendous wing damage. Got a quarter of his, well, visually he hasn't got a quarter of his wing missing, but in game terms, that is a quarter of your wing gone, and that is not a fun time. DRS enabled at the end of this lap, as that guy Vince has had a big problem. There's a huge problem. Hayden Gullis is out of this race. Car stranded in the middle, and of course, there will be another safety car at the same spot where the first one was called out. Hayden Gullis exits this race in one of the most dramatic circumstances.
He's lost both of his front wheels. That is a huge incident, and for someone who's not necessarily looking like he's going to fight up there, that would be devastating for Hayden as he crashes out of the Portuguese Grand Prix. It's the second safety car of this race, and now could be the time to switch on to mediums. 30 laps may be a little bit difficult. 24, a little bit more manageable, and so maybe some of these drivers will be looking to come in. Those, though, who aren't able to come in and do the rest of the race on those mediums: Formula Kareem, Kryzix, Kai, Test Will, Hoodie P, and that guy Vince, they will be reconsidering their strategies. And, well, this is a crucial point in the Grand Prix. They have to get this strategy right. They have to get this specific moment right. And, well, we will have to wait and see. We'll have another few laps under the safety car. In good news, though, Nagira, Ultra Killer, and T-Mac will be able to catch up.
Absolutely. They'll be able to catch up to the back of the queue. The safety car's waiting very, very patiently as Bernd Mailander at the exit of turn number 4. On the back straight, as Formula Karim still leads this contest. Kryzik's now up to P2. Formula Kai remains in P3, which is good news for him. Was having a little bit of a tussle for position, but now has it all under control in the Dams car. As F1 Alex is in again in this race. Into the pit lane he goes. I believe he has another fresh set of mediums at his disposal, which he will now slap onto his car. He has a 10-second penalty, so that'll probably be why he's going in regardless. We'll see how fresh his medium tyres actually are once he exits. The man who was at the forefront of this race, donning Gabriel Bortoletto's Invicta car in this particular contest, and in fact every contest for that matter. But it will be, luckily for F1 Alex, as I thought, a fresh pair of mediums, as T-Mac gets a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. Oh dear. By the way, Big T-Mac, I've recently learned what his name actually stands for. It must be Big Teleportation Mac, because I saw it, you all saw it, as we were watching the car of Hayden Gullis. His car was glitching all over the place. And, well, there you go. F1 Alex up into P9 and just gets out ahead of Nogueira. Here's the replay then of the incident. Car stranded in the middle of the track. It was one of the high-tech cars. And as you can see, Hoodie Pete here just trying to abide by the safety car delta. And all of them trying to sort out who's in what position. Luckily, they get all their bearings together and all is safe from there. Not if your name's Hayden Gullis, though. He is the most recent retiree from this Portuguese Grand Prix feature race. Dragonflies and Pondon also in the DNF list. But at the moment, your top 3, Formula Karim, Kryzik's and Formula Kai. F1 Alex might have had to get rid of his 10-second penalty and make another pit stop, but on very fresh mediums and in P9.
Yeah, I mean, it is a strategy. I thought it was the strategy that he was going to go for as soon as the safety car came out. Infratic and that guy Vince as well, and Ricky also going for that. And I think it's the right strategy. He's going to have the opportunity to catch up. Those pit stops in Formula 2 take a little bit longer, so a 2-stop is less viable unless there is a safety car, and there has been a safety car. So it's the perfect time for F1 Alex to come in. I think a few of the front runners will be a little bit nervous. A few of those who hadn't come in already and still haven't come in, they'll be a little bit nervous. And, well, I mean, I say that Formula Korea will just be, I think he could run any strategy and still be dominating this race. But Kryzik's, he is going to look to give him a good fight as we can keep one eye on the championship at this point in the season. And, well, there's 28 points between them. If Kryzik's gets a good result, of course, that will come down. Well, if he gets a better result than Formula Karim, that is. Formula Karim currently holds the... Formula Karim currently holds this race lead. He currently holds this weekend points lead as he came home to win the sprint race as well. So, Kryzik's needs to do something here if he wants to have another shot at, or to have a look at that championship at least. But also, because they have to factor in those drivers below the top 4, they could be in their own bubble right now. But those further down, P9 down, they're lurking.
They are, absolutely. The tyre differential could prove quite costly to those ahead. There is only so much pure pace will get you in this particular circumstance, especially if there doesn't happen to be another safety car. Although, based on evidence, there probably will be. But if there isn't another safety car and you did try and roll the dice and play that gamble, keep your cards close to your chest so that another one would come out and you would effectively neutralise that deficit, and then it doesn't happen, you actually find yourself in what looked like to be a pretty walk-in-the-park win and a pretty decent podium position, a good haul of points. It can all run away from you. So never say never. Even with all the pure pace in the world, there are a lot of takers who can still spring a surprise in this race. We are rapidly approaching the halfway, the fulcrum point of this Portuguese Grand Prix. We've had 2 safety cars, this being the second one, and so far it has been all action every time we've been underway. Battles beyond belief. They've been an absolute joy to watch. But equally, we have seen our predictions come to the forefront in terms of they have been losing astronomical amounts of time. Well, some predictions. I mean, Kryzix and Karim being on pole, we kind of got wrong. But in terms of the actual battling that happened and how much time it was costing them and how much it would actually counteract their own positive efforts, in terms of they would potentially get some damage, they would put the car in places they probably shouldn't be, and that's kind of let the race run away from them. But all has been neutralised. GB says he has 4 laps of extra fuel he should have burned. Don't tell that to Greenpeace. Actually, no, probably do tell that to Greenpeace. They'd be quite happy that you save fuel. But probably don't burn it for their sake. The point is that having that extra weight on the car is not going to do you any favours whatsoever, as it looks like the safety car, unless I curse it now, will be out. Never mind. Ha! Got you. Reverse psychology. Joseph's safety car in this lap.
Yeah, and Formula Karim is going to lead us away. We saw him take it to the very last moments before we got going on that last safety car restart. And that's where Kryzix took the advantage and was able to climb up into second place. And now he will have the opportunity to do the same thing, but this time he'll be trying to overtake the man in control of the pace, so it's going to be difficult. The drivers behind, they'll have a little bit more knowledge as to what Formula Karim is going to do, and now I'm sure the Campos driver is going to try to spring a surprise as he heads around the final corner now. Those weaves strong as ever, and Kryzix just waiting in the background. He could be waiting as late as possible, or he could be going right now. Indeed, he does, and the green flag is out once again. The Campos building up a gap. Kryzix caught off guard. Blackmere also caught off guard as GB looks to the inside of turn number 1, unable to make that move. He just didn't have that momentum as they headed up the hill then, and GB just sticking behind Blackmere for the time being. But somebody who's not sticking behind is Nagira. He's not sticking around, and he's looking to make that move on that guy. Vince looking to the outside, then having a little gander at a switchback move. Not going to do it, so he's going to try to do it in the hairpin, although it may have been more of a defensive move against Matty, who's going to try to make that send. Those soft compound tyres working well for the VAR driver as he makes that position up. Blackmere clinging on to P7 at the moment, but there's a little bit of battling going on behind him. Fratic has made his way up to P8, GB in P9, and Alex has lost out. P10 is where he sits, although he's got those softer tyres, or not the softer, but the fresher tyres than at GB, and that pays dividends as he climbs up into P9, and he will take his Invicta car closer and closer to the top. And there's fighting just ahead of them as well, which will benefit them, as Infratic gets past Blackmere. That means that F1 Alex can look to the outside line as he heads around the final braking zone of the lap, but unable to just get enough momentum on Blackmere to make that move stick. That'll come on the main straight as there's a little bit of a lag spike for Blackmere. Somebody taking a very, very right line. That is Hoodie Pete, and just a little bit of slipstream chicken now as they head down the straight, almost 3 wide into turn number 1. Blackmere to the inside, contact, and F1 Alex has lost out. 14th place is where he drops to. Not much time loss, but so many positions lost. That is devastating for the Invicta driver, and he will need to now fight his way back.
Look at how many cars are basically in a caterpillar. It's down the inside, goes to the Trident car of that guy Vince. It's now on the inside. GB and Matty D are going into combat. That guy Vince is going for dives. Infratic's up to P7. He's the, oh gosh, into the gravel and into the wall goes Matty D. Barged off, and now the wheel's gone as well. That will be the end of that for the VAR car. And ladies and gentlemen, breathe a deep sigh of despair. It's another safety car. Well, now we're back to the strategy talk again, ladies and gentlemen. Formula Karim still leads. Kryzix in P2. Probably still not, I doubt it's time whatsoever to get onto the soft tyres. But any advantage anyone's having pitting under the safety car is wiped out in a mere matter of corners. They hardly get any time. 1.5 laps of racing, and we're back in a procession again. So they're not able to use those newer tyres to the advantage they would have won. Equally, however, they do get to save them a little bit. Just preserve the life of them. As into the pits comes Formula Karim. Kryzik's feinted a move into it, perhaps trying to throw him off kilter, but Karim's in, Kai's in, Luke Howick's in. We got Hoodie Pete, we got so many cars moving about, it's ridiculous. But here we go. The main man, the leader predominantly of this race, now coming in and deciding it is time for the soft tyres.
Very, very interesting call there from Formula Karim, from Formula Kai as well, and from Hoodie Pete. It looks like the softs are the preferred tyres for those who've come into the pits very, very early. They're going to have to do 16 laps on them before the end of this race. I would have thought that the likes of Blackmere would have been, well, benefiting greatly from that, because only Blackmere, because he was the only one on those soft compound tyres. He came in and strapped on an almost new set of medium tyres that are surely going to take him to the end of the race now. But yeah, it could be ridiculously early for those softs. We haven't really seen yet, because we haven't been able to see the drivers have enough momentum on those softs because of the fact that the safety car has been out so many times. And this is the last time that it'll be out in this Grand Prix. There's a maximum of 3 in the lobby, and after that there will be no more. So this is out of the window for the strategy. Thankfully, we will be getting mostly racing for the rest of the race, unless we get a virtual safety car. We can only have 3 of them. But yeah, we haven't seen enough soft running to see whether they can do 16 laps. The longest that anyone's done, F1 Alex, he did 7 laps on those softs. One of those was under a safety car, under safety car conditions, trying to stick to the Delta. So we haven't seen enough of those tyres, but someone who's probably seen enough of those tyres now is F1 Alex, who is not come in this time under the safety car. Those mediums are going to stay bolted on. Kryzik's and Tesswheel not regretting their decision as we head on to lap 20 of this race, or they might regret it later, but they're certainly not going back on it now. Mediums for 19 laps, they'll be taken as far into this Grand Prix as they can.
Well, it just got interesting, everybody. And also interesting is what's happening up at the front of the field. We've got Kryzik's in P1 as T-Max coming into the pits once again in this contest. My heart goes out to Luke Howick as well, actually, because while all that pit lane shenanigan were going on, Formula Kai and Luke Howick had to double stack, and unfortunately for Luke Howick, he drew the shorter straw on the double stack, and so he is now P14. But on the safety car, he will all be fine because it is all neutralised. Kryzik's P1, Testable in P2, but on those newer medium tyres, Infratic, predictions coming to play, Infratic for Prema in P3 in Portugal. How many phenomenal words beginning with the letter P can I go through in one sentence? Probably not enough. GB in P4 still has front wing damage, I believe, and still managing to hold down the top 4 in this race, so kudos to him. That guy Vince rounds out the top 5, and Nogueira, despite all of the safety car shenanigans that happened recently, is now up into P7 once again. You can just pick the names out of a hat. You can't tell who's going to be where. Of course, Formula Karim and Co. down in the likes of P10. On those newer softer tyres, the car a bit lighter, perhaps less aggression on those tyres, but they have got to make it count, and they've got to be so careful not to use up their sell-by date all too quickly.
Yeah, he can't push as much as he has done throughout this weekend, as he was, as we got Formula Karim saying he's surprised Kryzik stayed out. So we think that he's taken the gamble by coming in. He thinks that Kryzik has taken the gamble by staying out. So this is where minds start to shift, strategies start to shift. Different people approach these sorts of situations in different ways, because it's such a difficult situation to approach. Kryzik, he's sitting in there in first position. He has that track position, but he watched Formula Karim in that sprint race slice through the field. He watched as Formula Karim slice through the field once again at the start of this race. He watched himself slice through the field. So he knows that it is definitely possible to fight forward. And he knows that at some point in this race, is going to have to make that pit stop, and he's going to have to do it most likely under green flag conditions. So I'm inclined to agree with Formula Kareem. If you really do think about it, it is going to be difficult for Cryzix to gain back those 30-odd seconds that he is going to lose in that pit lane. But hey, this is Creator Series. This is F2 Creator Series. Anything could happen.
This series is what the stuff of fairy tales are made of, ladies and gentlemen, and Portimao so far, not disappointing, although we are on our third safety car of the evening, and I won't tempt fate by saying there won't be another safety car, because I was convinced once upon a time that once we got to 3 we were done, and then it turns out there were more. So I'm not going to put anything out there. I'm just gonna enjoy what's happening and unfolding in front of our very eyes. Safety car is in once again. And ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill by now. It was so nice to do it twice. We're doing it thrice. It's another restart. However, Cryzix is the one leading the line. He gets the choice of when to pull the trigger. Test Will, he knows what's at stake. You can tell by the livery. But he's waiting to see if he can catch out Cryzix in the ART ahead of him. Infratic, on those newer medium tyres in the Prema car, has a good chance to potentially put himself to the forefront as Cryzix pulls the trigger very early, and we are back racing here in Portimao, and immediately GB has got a great slingshot on the inside of Infratic, trying to make it count, albeit with front wing damage, and he absolutely has. Great move from the Trident driver, but switching back and diving down the inside. It's devastating from Infratic. Lucky to get the car stopped, but is now holding it round the outside. Great side-by-side racing between the two drivers, gunning for the outer reaches of the podium positions. As now down the inside goes GB, but momentum will not favour the Trident driver. It's Infratic that will have it at his disposal, but GB will just slot in front. Come the double right-hander, and into Samsung. The Trident driver takes third place, but for how long? Switch back from Infratic as GB goes slightly wide on the right-hander. And now it's the Prema driver's turn to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dive it down the inside. And through Infratic, tries to ascend, but these two interlocked in battle. Crazy combat between these two. One Trident's got ahead. The other one's now having a piece of the puzzle. He's having a nice chomp on the fruit of battle, and he says that tastes lovely. Through into P4 goes that guy Vince. F1 Alex up into P6 and looking for more. But look who's here, joining the party. Formula Kareem out of nowhere. Up into P5, ascending at a meteoric rate. It's the Campos driver, causing all kinds of chaos and conundrums for everybody else on those new soft tyres. As down towards turn 1 they go, down the inside Formula Kareem is, but still alongside F1 Alex is. Battle not done yet. 3-second time penalty for Blackmere. Formula Kareem ascends into the top 5.
That was one of the best safety car restarts from an individual that I think I've ever seen. The fact that he's just been able to take that gamble as there's 3 wide behind. That is 3 wide, and there's contact. There is further contact in this race out of the hairpin, and that costs Ricky and Ultra Killer and Kai a lot of time. They've dropped to the rear of the field. Kai getting back ahead of Luke Howick. But for how much longer? Because he is missing a front wing end plate, and on these Formula 2 cars, it makes a huge difference as Kareem looks to the inside of that guy, Vince. He's going to try and retake those podium positions, but first, he has to get past the first Trident before he even starts to think about the second one. Looking to the outside, it switches to the inside line. Is he able to pull this one off? Yes, indeed he is. Vince is going to try to cling onto the outside line, but the grip is not enough, and the Campos driver continues to amaze as he heads down the main straight. But from the timing boards we can see that Vince is just clinging on in there, and you can see the front wing as we were on board there as they are side by side locking wheels as we head into turn number 1. Not literally but figuratively locking wheels as we headed through the entire final sector, and Vince comes out on top this time. They are literally hanging on to each other's coattails, and Kareem, he's got the grip, so surely at some point he's going to want to make that move. But GB in the meantime making a move, trying to put Test Will in between the Tridents and Kareem. He's been successful, so has Vince as they get through. There's yellow flags out as somebody's gone round once again at a hairpin. There's so much going on once again. This is beginning, well, I say beginning to get difficult to keep a track of. It's continuing to get difficult to keep a track of. Kareem looks alongside Test Will, looks ahead of Test Will, and now the Tridents, they have no protection once again. F1 Alex, though, sending it into the back of Kareem, half spinning himself, and Infratic gets back ahead of Test Will. Test Will, who took that gamble to stay on those mediums, it's really not paid off for him, and the contact with that F1 Alex has further ruined his evening.
Well, that's how quickly the pendulum can shift. It's so vicious. Here in Formula 2, what a spectacle everyone is putting on, though, and Formula Kareem has got 2 Tridents ahead of him that will try and drive the weapon into the heart and soul of the Campos man behind them. But with DRS effectively bump drafting that guy, Vince, towards turn 1, goes the Campos man. That's 1 Trident cleared. He's got another one ahead of him as they head into Lagos they go, which makes me feel like they're lost, but they're carrying on through the right-hander and now into the left. The switchback on the softer tyres is sensational from Formula Kareem. Has the inside line for the hairpin. Nay, has cleared the Trident before the hairpin corner. The Campos man on a charge. Into P2 he goes, has 4.5 seconds between himself and Kryzix, but of course Kryzix yet to pit.
Well, you say they're lost, but Kareem has just continued his momentum from that Brazilian race. He didn't have it in the sprint, but oh boy, did he have it in the race, and he's translated it over to Portimao this week. And 4.4 seconds is the gap between himself and Kryzix. That's coming down, and it will look to continue to come down. Kryzix was quicker on that last lap than Formula Kareem, but that's because of all the chaos that was going on with the Tridents, with Infratic as well. And I'm sure that even though those tyres are 6 laps old, they are getting older. Kryzix's are getting even older. Surely they're nearing puncher territory here after 24, almost 25 laps. But no, fastest lap of the Grand Prix thrown in by Kryzix, smashed out of the park by 8/10 by Formula Kareem. These two are schooling the rest of the field. F1 Alex, though, don't forget about him. He's had the pace to be up there. He's just not had the strategy. P5 is what he's just taken, and 2.6 seconds separate him and GB, whose front wing is looking a little bit worse for wear. But this race is nowhere near over. F1 Alex, he could be on that podium in a couple of laps' time. Kareem could be on the top of the podium in a couple of laps' time. And Infratic, where he could be looking ahead into P6. Test Will with a wobble on the exit. Through goes T-Mac. Those two are fighting away, and T-Mac with the move of the evening.
Through goes T-Mac, ladies and gentlemen. So nice, he did it twice. At the double is T-Mac. That's fantastic stuff. I was about to mention that Test Will has actually been pretty consistent as of late. Normally is there or thereabouts in terms of scoring points, and he's here again, proving just that. But the Invicta car of T-Mac there, providing the perfect example. It's academic switchback territory, really. That is how it's properly executed. And that's what we were talking about, the desperation, trying to get through, make the moves as quickly as possible. But those millimetric mistakes open up the door for another car to come sweeping through. T-Mac has done just that. And both Invicta cars, T-Mac on the soft tyres, F1 Alex on the mediums as Kryzix comes into the pits. Formula Kareem almost breaching into the 127s. Good grief, the pace of the man is absolutely scorching today. Stratospheric levels of work from the Campos man as the 2 Tridents going into combat. Kryzix makes his pit stop and finds himself slap bang almost at the back of the order. It's heartbreak for the ART man as someone's had a spin again. It looks like Nogueira has gone round, and it's hometown havoc for the man in 13th place. GB says, could this go to the time limit? Well, strap yourselves in, folks, because it's going to get sensationally spicy. Lap number 27, almost 10 tours of the Portimao circuit to go. Formula Kareem has a margin of 2.6 seconds. The Tridents working together to best use their pace and exercise any advantage they can find. but they have got a sizable gulf to make up, like I say. But also to consider, will those softer tyres ahead manage to last to the end of the race? I'm sure they've done all the calculations. I'm sure it's in good hands. But what if they just pushed them that little bit too hard? There's so many questions still to answer as we head into the closing stages.
And don't forget as well that GB actually has front wing damage. So the fact that he's been able to keep up this much is, like, ridiculous. Well, he's obviously had Vince's help, but the fact that he has been able to stay within that range of Formula Kareem, it's something to be proud of for GB, and he's going to continue to work together with his teammate. T-Mac is going to continue to work with F1 Alex. Two teammates that won't work together, though. Luke Howick and Formula Kai, as there's contact between them as they're almost making contact once again into turn number 1. Kai, though, he moves up into P10, and he's trying to fight his way now past Blackmere. But, yeah, the two Tridents fighting away, or not fighting, helping each other fight further up the field is what I meant to say. And then you've got the two Invictors behind, T-Mac and F1 Alex. T-Mac on those softs, F1 Alex on those mediums. So one of them is going to be better now, one of them is going to be better later, but they're going to try to use both of those and combine them to make the perfect strategy. And, well, they've gained 0.3 on GB in the last sector, so it's clearly working.
Yeah, on much fresher tyres as well. GB 21 lap old medium tyres definitely can make their way to the end of the race. They have had time, have a little bit of breathing room during the safety cars that we have had, but equally, you cannot ignore a deficit that large. And as much as they're keeping up, the two Tridents, they are going to fall into the clutches of the Invicta cars behind. It does mean, luckily for them at least, they can build a bit of a barricade for themselves. Two Tridents working together to try and keep track position. But I believe both Invicta cars will probably have their sights set much further forwards as GB, with a bit of a helping hand of DRS, I say a lot, but gets through into P2. F1 Alex ascends up into P4. Behind, though, Test Will looks like he was trying to make a move, and Formula Kai is making moves. He's past Blackmere for P9. All still going on. Ultra Killer up to P12. But, oh gosh, Luke Howick's retired from the session. I saw he went into an AI at the bottom because I saw he left the session briefly. But that is devastating for Luke Howick. Not the way he would have wanted his evening to go whatsoever. It means Cryzix, at least in consolation, now up into P13. And has got some great pace on the soft tyres, but a 12-second gulf with 8 laps to go. It's all just a bit too much for the ART man.
Yeah, I think he's not had the opportunity to demonstrate the pace as much as Formula Kareem has. I mean, he had the fastest lap of the race for about 2 seconds when he was on those 24 lap old or whatever they were at the time mediums. So he has the pace to be up there with Kareem. He just didn't have the strategy today, and that's unfortunate, but that's what happens when you've got a strategy split. Formula Kareem, we're yet to see if those softs are going to last to the end. What we have seen is that those softs, they've been ridiculously quick throughout the entire race that we've had. And, well, or throughout the entire stint that he's had. But he's stretched them longer than anybody else has in this race so far. So we haven't seen them. We haven't seen where that drop-off point is. But I'm sure that the Tridents will be hoping it soon. I'm sure that one of the Invictors, at least, is hoping that it's going to be soon. And Test Will demonstrating that, well, there is no drop-off point for those mediums, probably, as he makes his way past Infratic into P6. And, well, he's going to have to pit, unfortunately, but at the moment, he's just enjoying this fight against the leading homeboy, the one that I predicted to take the victory in this race. It's not gone his way fully, but as he goes down the inside of Test Wheel, P6 is going to be his once again. So I'm not too disappointed in that prediction.
Absolutely. And speaking of predictions, actually, no, let's not talk about mine. It's a disaster. Anyway, lap number 30 of the Portuguese Grand Prix. Test Wheel descends down the hill, still very much hanging on to the coattails of Infratic up ahead. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2 meanwhile, and Blackmere is in the wall. He's got no nose on, I can only assume, as he took a big trip into the barrier. Actually still does have some front wing left, but the right-hand side is looking worse for wear. It is physical and emotional damage for the VAR man. It has not been VAR's day by any stretch of the imagination. One car DNF'd, the other one in P13. However, the battle up at the front with the two teammates of Invicta working together still rages on. The Trident boys have done very, very well, actually, to keep the Invicta cars at a relative arm's length. A gap that was 1.7 seconds a couple of laps ago now has only been whittled down to about 1.3. The two Tridents showing some great pace, and GB, despite the front wing damage, I tip my hat off to you, is absolutely flying despite that. But now a 6.5 second gap to the man out in front. Any hopes that perhaps some medium tyre runners would have had of usurping the soft tyre runner of the Campos ahead have surely gone down the drain.
Yeah, it will be very, very unlikely, nigh on impossible, unless Kareem makes a mistake, fingers crossed. Unless he makes a mistake and then drops down, because that will spice up the end of this race. It'll spice up the race for the victory, something that we haven't had much of in this race. It reminds me of early this year, 2023, the entirety, when we just had Max Verstappen dominating the rest of the field. But fair play to Kareem to be compared to Max Verstappen, and it to be a valid claim is nothing to be too disappointed about, and he will be taking home maximum points from this race, if indeed, that is, he's able to snatch that fastest lap back. Currently, Kryzix holds it, and I don't think he will be able to actually, but he's going to take home nigh on full points and increase his gap, his huge gap already at the top of the championship. Yeah, you mentioned it last lap. We'll have a look at it again. That gap between the Tridents and the Invictus, it's actually gone up. It's 1.6 seconds. It was 1.4 seconds this time last lap. I don't think they're going to make those gains. I think that the Tridents have done enough, or they're doing enough to cling on to that final podium position. Now that I've said that, considering our record this evening, they're going to bin it the next corner. But we'll have to wait and see. There, you can see they are in the same shot, so it's not completely out of the realms of the possibility that in the next 5 laps the overtake is made. But at the moment, the Tridents looking supreme.
I've also got to say at this point, I'm just looking at the tyre selection. Has Will not pitted yet? Despite being on 31 lap old mediums, he's still fighting it out with Infratic on tyres near enough, give or take a few laps, half the age of his medium tyres. Will is putting on a great show for 6th place, but he does have to relieve himself of the medium tyres eventually, as much as he might love them. But a great showing from the road in Carlin man, donning Zane Maloney's car in this particular instance. Through the left-hander they go, despite the age of his tyres, still hanging on to DRS, and perhaps that's the problem the Invicta cars have, and Will is just depicting exactly that point, in terms of actually, despite how old the medium tyres are, they've still got decent pace, and they still can do a lot with them, even with the age they are at. Also, in other news, as T-Mac again gets past F1 Alex, the gap's still teetering at 1.6 seconds. It is not coming down whatsoever. The Invicta boys, no matter how hard they try to DRS, pulley, horse and carriage each other one way or the other, they're not really making the inroads they would have wanted to. Kryzix, in other news, has another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And not only that, he's nearly in DRS range of Nogueira up ahead. So despite it all seemingly lost for the ART man, he's still got a chance at getting some overtakes done.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll get something out of this race, and he fully deserves it because he has had the pace. And again, the strategy just hasn't gone his way today. Mainly, well, partially through fault of his own, because Kareem said it himself. He couldn't believe that Kryzix didn't come into the pits, and we can't believe it. On reflection, that he didn't come into the pits. I think I said at the time that it was a strategy split. It was completely 50-50, and I think now that it's all played out, I never said that. That never happened. I was completely on board with Formula Kareem, but those 8 laps that he ran, even though he was quick, just seemed to kill off his race, and he has now actually made it all the way up to the back of Nogueira. Tell you who else has made it all the way up to the back. T-Mac is within DRS range of Vince, who comes into the pits. So he's left GB to fight it out on his own for the final 3 laps of this Grand Prix. I'm not sure why Vince has come in. Surely there's got to be front wing damage on the front of that Trident car. That is disappointing. Although, having said that, GB's got front wing damage. So, yeah, that's... Is there a front wing change?
He hasn't. He hasn't gone. He's left him out to dry as that guy, Vince. He's down in P12. He's left his teammate to fend for himself. Perhaps the possibility of maybe being worried about a puncher. But if your name's Testwill and you still haven't pitted, and your tyres are practically third hand and they've contracted something because of how old they are, it's unprecedented. I cannot believe that guy, Vince, has entered the pit lane. Well, I'm sure all will come to the forefront, but GB has got a mission from God to do in P2. It's going to be elbows out all the way through. For now, though, got decent pace, still keeping T-Mac at arm's length. I say that as he ships 2 temps through the right-hander. Meanwhile, the Cryzix overtaking show has begun. He's already gained 2 positions. Up into P9 he goes. Next target up the road are 2 other cars, Formula Kai and Hoodie P. There's definitely potential for P7 if he keeps his foot flat to the floor and just keeps his head down and determined. Makes sense. Oh, we've heard in our ear, that guy Vince, the Trident man, hadn't been on softs yet. So the DRS pulling for GB could only last for so long before he had to eventually come in and, well, give up a podium place. That is so unfortunate. Speaking of which, into the pits also is Testwill. 33 laps on a set of medium tyres and keeping up with Infratic despite that. I tip my hat off to you, Will. That is a remarkable effort from you, sir. F1 Alex now up into P3, though, and GB might not have DRS assistance from his teammate, but still the Trident man, keeping the Invicta cars at arm's length.
Yeah, this is incredible stuff. If you watch on board with GB, you can see how much he's struggling, but somehow, through some form of metric, he's able to stay ahead. Those tyres do look incredibly tired, and, well, excuse the pun, but he's just able to cling onto it. You can see how tentatively he's entering the corners, just hoping to put the power down on the exit enough to stay away, to ward off the Invictas. And at the moment, he is proving successful, although I've just done it again. I did what you did earlier. He cost a couple of tenths in that corner. Just that he has to avoid the curbs at this point, or at least the inside curbs, because I think he will be nearing puncture territory. He will have pushed those tyres so ridiculously hard that because of the front wing offset that, well, he'll be struggling at this point. We've got 2 laps left in this race for him to hold on. Currently on that one, he was able to build a gap to Alex, and T-Mac has decided that it's his turn, his opportunity to try to fight back past the Trident. And, well, GB currently putting up a roadblock in what would be almost a perfect weekend for the 2 Invictas. They went for different strategies. One went for the softs at the start. One went for the mediums. One has been into the pits. How many times is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And, well, it seems to have worked. GB doesn't understand it as much as we don't, how he's been able to ward T-Mac and Alex off, but I think there's got to be a point where they just start to push. Surely they have to be conserving something. I don't know what they're conserving because there's no ERS, and they don't have to save fuel, but they must be conserving something because there is no way that those tyres for GB are lasting. The time remaining is 3 minutes on the clock. We will be having one more. This is the final lap of the race. So
I think this is it.
Is going to come up to the line. The checkered flag is out, and Kareem is going to be across the line to win in Portimao. Incredible circumstances, but he has fought his way through everything today and takes a deserved victory. GB somehow clinging on to second place. T-Mac and Alex third and fourth in the Invictas. Infratic will be coming home in 5th position. Hoodie Pete and Formula Kai, they'll fight to the line, but Formula Kai won't have enough on track at least, but off track he will take that P6. Looking down the rest of the field, Ultra Killer and Cryzix across the line. Cryzix taking P8 after a strategy that didn't quite work out. Vince, who also went for a gambled strategy, that was nowhere near what worked out. In the end, he's going to come across the line in P10. Testwill, he'll be P11. Blackmere in P12. Ricky and then Nagira, the final points positions. What a race that was. What a race. What a weekend of racing that was.
If you ever needed an advert for what kind of ferocious and fiery spectacle F2 in Creator Series is, I present you this as Nogueira does a cute 360 across the line. Dial points there, but P14 for the pole sitter, for one of the hometown faithful. But the Prince of Portugal today, he's your driver of the day as well. Formula Karim, and let me say it again, the cream of the crop rises to the top. And he's here again. Not shy of the top step of the podium, never has been since he came into Formula 2 in Creator Series, but it's another piece of silverware to the account. And it's domination defined from the Campos man. What a weekend from Formula Karim. Congratulations to GB, his first podium of the Creator Series F2 season. Congratulations to T-Mac, his first podium of the Creator Series F2 in a feature race. Goodness gracious me. What an absolutely unbelievable weekend we've had. And Formula Karim takes the ultimate prize. GB in P2, T-Mac third, both Invicta cars doing an interstellar job. Infratic P5, Formula Kai P6, Hoodie Pete P7, Krysix had to settle for P8 in the end. Ultra Killer Knife, that guy Vince 10th, Test Wheel, Blackmere, Ricky. Thanks for my prediction. Nogueira, Howick, Luke Howick, Matty D, Hayden Gullis, Dragonflies, and Pondon. We had 5 DNFs in the end from Luke Howick down to Pondon in what can only be described as a phenomenal Portuguese Grand Prix spectacle. Joseph, how do you sum up something like that? Because there surely aren't words that can quite encapsulate just how brilliant that was today.
Scrap the wild cards. We don't need them because we've got enough action in the regular races as it is. Because the wild card was the fact that we were racing in Portimao tonight, and it absolutely delivered on all metrics.
I literally couldn't agree. I've said the phrase so many times before, but I don't have them. I don't have the words. I am literally speechless. It's a commentator's worst nightmare, ladies and gentlemen, but that is the kind of spectacle we have had today. We will, of course, have interviews with the top 3 drivers, as we always do. But what can you say? It had it all. It had it all. It had drama. It had devastating consequences. It had delight as well. And the first driver joining us tonight, it's the man who dominated from the word go. Formula Karim will be the first to join us. Congratulations. Holy moly, my friend. That was an interstellar weekend. I don't have the words. It's a commentator's nightmare. But absolutely unbelievable, mate. Congratulations.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that a lot. And yeah, I'm a bit speechless, to be honest. I knew I'd have pace just from the couple practice laps I did, but I did not know it would be this. You know, I mean, with the safety cars, the strategy was difficult. I was really surprised when Krysix stayed out on that final one, because I'm pretty sure we didn't have any safety cars left. But yeah, another dream race for me.
It was an absolutely ridiculous run. I mean, you say you didn't expect to have that much pace over the rest of the field. Surely you had some sort of inkling that you'd be 7/10 quicker over pretty much every lap of that sprint race.
Yeah, I mean, I probably did. I don't like to get ahead of myself and think, oh, I'm going to dominate, I'm going to win this. I like to take it step by step. But yeah, that feature, honestly, I've completely forgotten about the sprint. The sprint, I was very lucky to not get damaged, because lap 1, Matty spun in front of me and I nailed into the side of him, no damage. And then I'm sure you saw the incident with F1 Alex as well. Somehow he got damage and I didn't, even though our front wings touched. But yeah.
Of course. I think also putting it into that, you said on the team radio, we saw it, that you were surprised that Krysix didn't pit alongside you. Did you feel like that was sort of a turning point in terms of the race, that you both didn't pit together, and so it just gave you a little bit, of course it's not all set in stone because you have to make the moves, but was that sort of a turning point? Did you feel like that was the moment that was definitely possible in the feature race?
Yeah, so I think the third safety car was where we stayed up together. And yeah, shout out Dale for the restarts. He coached me along nicely for the safety car restarts. But Yeah, I was more talking about the final safety car. Not the restart, but I boxed under it for softs and he stayed out. He didn't pit under any safety cars. That for me was like game over. At first, I didn't realize there wasn't any safety cars left, but once I realized, I was like, there's no way he catches. I saw how far back he came out, but yeah, that was definitely the turning point.
It was brilliant
And then from
start to finish. Absolutely brilliant. Sorry, Joseph, carry on, my friend.
that's all right. I was about to. You continue.
Nice. I mean, I think also, I don't want to put statistics on, but we'll put statistics on for you anyway. It's your 4th feature race win of the season. It's your 6th podium of the season in F2 Creator Series. I mean, there surely can be no sweeter feeling. Is this like the dream scenario for you? Especially with the fact that you have made your own side quests, starting from the back as well.
Yeah, I mean, the 100% races definitely made it easier. But yeah, I couldn't have imagined a better start to the season. Being a reserve, I'm not sure if everyone knows now, but I'm actually full-time now in F2, so thanks to Hayden for that. But yeah, I expected to have maybe a season to, get comfortable, get used to it, get used to making content from it, etc. But yeah, straight into the deep end, and it's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a dominant display, and as his name says, joy to Kareem. Congratulations, sir. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, guys, and I'm sure the commentary was great. In a bit, guys.
We'll send the invoice. Thank you. Perfect. There you go, guys. Your race winner, Formula Kareem. The perfect weekend. Of course, he did ruin your qualifying prediction, Joseph. I'm sorry. But other than that, it was fantastic. What a weekend from him. I believe we have another person waiting to enter the room and get chatting about their race for his first Creator Series F2 podium of the season. T-Mac, congratulations, your first trip to the rostrum in a feature race in Formula 2 this season. How was that race for you today?
Yes, it was. I can't describe how my race ended up. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, and then all of a sudden it just fell into my place, and I ended up getting a podium out of it.
I mean, that's a pretty solid descriptor. Oh, I'll try and get my words out. Was it the track? Was it the track that was the problem for you? Well, I say the problem. You ended up with a podium, but I presume you felt like you had no pace from what you said there. Was it the track that you felt that you just struggled with?
I don't know if I would say I felt like I had no pace, but the sprint race went wrong because I put the wrong setup on and I just fell to the back. And then the main race, I started from the back and just couldn't overtake anyone. I got caught up in incidents and all that. It might have something to do with my internet. Like, I don't know what was happening, but Portuguese just isn't good on the F1 game for lags. I just felt like I couldn't do anything. And then, again, the last safety car came out and I just said, I'm just going to stay behind and hope everything falls into place. And there was a 6-car crash and a 3-car crash in front of me. I just passed everyone and ended up, just driving away.
Well, dare I say you turned your race weekend upside down, my friend. Good job. I think the other thing I want to say, I mean, you alluded to it there in terms of the incidents that you had during the feature race in particular at the beginning. Just how difficult was it to navigate through that traffic around Portimao? Yeah,
it was way harder than you'd think. Like, I'm sure you guys saw it. It was 3 wide everywhere. There were 2 crashes on the main straight. We just couldn't figure it out, between us all. But yeah, 3 wide everywhere. Once it was 3 wide, you had to back out. It was impossible to make moves. Because I don't know why. It was hard.
I mean, when you've got about 5 cars trying to fit into one space, it is going to be slightly difficult. Do you think that held you up at any point with the fact that it was so tightly packed together? We saw a couple of people mention maybe that it was fun, but it was a little bit. Hey, it was hampering your race. Do you think that had there been less of a fight there, do you think you could have had a 2-3 on there?
Well, yeah, but it's always hypothetical. It's everyone got held up by it, so everyone got impacted. If So if everyone stayed clean, that probably still would have been 3-4, even worse. But yeah, the battling was good though. It was just a lot. I lost heaps of time.
No, you all put on a great show, and you especially. Well done, sir. Your first trip to the podium in the F2 Creator Series this season. Ladies and gentlemen, T-Mac, your third place finisher.
Yeah, thank you.
Lovely jubbly. Well, there you go. First trip to the rostrum. Another person who had a first trip to the rostrum today was Mr. GB. Despite the front wing damage, came through to finish P2. He said himself he didn't know how he did it, but that has got to be. I mean, you can't take away from it. It was a scintillating drive despite that, wasn't it?
No, I think he's got to be up there for driver of the day performance, because that stint at the end was one of the most impressive things I think we've seen in the Creator Series in a very long time, because we see all these overtakes all the time. I know Kareem's weekend was probably trumps that, to be honest, but just that final stint, if you're taking little snippets, because Kareem was good all weekend long, if you're talking about a snippet, that's about as good as you're going to get. Ridiculously old medium tyres, almost on puncture level medium tyres, and you're able to hold off two drivers who are using DRS to try to catch up to you, and you're even towards the end, I think the last couple of laps, he actually gained time on them. It was impressive. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Hello. Absolutely. What can I tell you? It's entered the room. I don't know how it got in here, but it's entered here. Who do you think's driver of the day? No? Fair enough. Well, the point is, ladies and gentlemen, like Joseph was saying, we have to decide our driver of the day. We have to decide our driver of the day, and that is going to be a tricky endeavour, because like you say, you can put GB in the conversation. What a stint he had. Formula Kareem, you can't ignore how invincible his weekend was, but there are other people you can throw in there as well. So, Joseph, who would you say is your driver of the day?
It's an incredibly difficult one. I think it's much more difficult than Brazil. I think there's no doubt about that. It was much more difficult than Brazil. I'm just going to go out there, and I think Formula Kareem is the boring answer, right? It's probably the right answer, but it's the boring answer. So, go on, GB.
Nice. Good choice. His first trip to the podium as well. You know what? I'll give it to GB as well. For the fact he said that he had 25% front wing damage, the fact he managed to keep the gap stable in the end, despite not having a teammate to help his tremendous advances, and to come out with P2 at the end of all of that. Plus being a fortune teller, because let's not forget, he said, is it going to go to a time limit? And lo and behold, it did. GB, everyone. Full-time Formula 1 racer, part-time fortune teller. You heard it here first. Well, that about concludes proceedings. That about concludes all of the action and all of the goings-on here in Portimao. Joseph, where can they find you on the social media?
Well, if you search on pretty much every social media, KOTKS, it's pronounced Copcast. No one really knows that, but yeah, if you spell that out in any social media, you can find my silly little videos that I make about F1, about all the different types of racing that I seem to find interesting. Yeah.
Excellent. Go and follow him now. You've been warned. Where you can find me, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you, it's not in Germany. Can't find me there. Where you can find me, though, is on a bunch of social medias. My name's below. It's Carl Paranik. If you search that up, all one word, you will probably find me. I also have a YouTube channel called Carl's Cars, which I need to actually get back uploading on. But when I do, it will be all fun and games. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap up what was a gift of a weekend here in Portugal in the F2 Creator Series. It was a mystery track today, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen, it's a mystery track tomorrow as well in Formula 1. We don't know what it is, but I'm sure it is going to be a cracker. And then alongside that as well, don't forget WRC on Monday. WRC, they head off to Sardinia, where you can enjoy all of the goings-on in the world of all surfaces that are probably aren't tarmac. Well, that will encapsulate all of it. Joseph, any closing thoughts on if there are even any words to describe the closing thoughts on Portimao?
I almost have so many thoughts that I now have no thoughts. It's no thoughts, head empty. There's nothing in there. So, well, it's watch next week, because I'm sure we thought Brazil was chaos. This has blown it out of the water. We'll see what next week has on offer.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't agree more. The mysterious shroud also remains over round number 8. The drivers will have no idea where we're heading to next, but it will be all action, all the same. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this Creator Series Formula 2 broadcast. If you did enjoy, consider giving the Creator Series a follow on a bunch of social medias, not only on Twitch or on a YouTube, but also with all the links above. Perhaps a chance for you to interact and get involved with all of the goings-on in this wonderful series. Join us for Formula 1 tomorrow. That too will be a mystery. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And from myself, Carl, and from Joseph alongside me, goodbye.